Chapter 1. In a mansion in the capital city of Dongqin Country, a resentful voice was heard. Is young master awake? Two figures rushed in from outside the courtyard. However, there was no movement in the courtyard, as if the voice was just an illusion. Should we go in and take a look? Another voice trembled as if she was afraid of entering the room. Let's not. The servant girl said, if young master wakes up, he will wake us up. If we enter young master's room without permission, we will be punished. But if young master wakes up and we are not by his side, we will still be punished. What if young master wakes up and cannot speak? Then let's go in and take a look. If young master does not wake up, we will come out again. All right. After the two of them finished their discussion, they quietly went to the master bedroom in the courtyard. They slowly opened the door and walked in quietly. When they saw the person lying on the bed with his eyes still closed, they heaved a sigh of relief and slowly retreated. Luckily young master did not wake up. Then let's wait at the door. I did not expect young master to be unconscious for so long. I heard that the general wanted to settle the score with the other party but was stopped by young master's words. Young master said, damn it, wait for me to wake up and I will teach him a lesson. Poor young master, he was beaten up so badly. If the other young masters knew about this, they would be heartbroken. I heard that the young masters will be back soon. Really? Sima Yue opened her eyes after the two servant girls left. She was furious and gritted her teeth as if she wanted to bite someone. Hiss! The wound on her face was pulled and it hurt so much that she took a deep breath. Damn it, are they playing with me? Sima Yue wanted to reach out and touch the wound on her face. However, the movement pulled on the wound on her body and she had no choice but to give up. Sima Yue couldn't help but roll her eyes when she heard the servant girls chattering outside and calling him young master. She was a young lady but her grandfather asked her to be a man, wear men's clothes and walk like a man. You're also a scammer. Sima Yue cursed. She was the #1 assassin of the 21st century. It was one thing for her to be tricked by her organization, but she did not expect that she would be tricked by a 14-year-old girl the moment she arrived here. That's right, the curse came from her mouth just now because she had been tricked twice in a row. Previously, she was the most capable assassin in the organization. Since her debut, she had taken care of many troublesome fellows for the organization. Because she had never failed, she had always been the top sister of the organization. However, she didn't expect that the second person in charge of the organization would send her to carry out a mission when the boss wasn't around because he was jealous that she was valued by the boss. When she got there, she found out that it was just a trap. The organization gave up on her because of the high price of $1 billion. They even prepared the latest bomb for her, causing her and the house to explode together. The process of death was too short. She only had time to curse in her heart before she fell into darkness and lost consciousness. When she regained her consciousness, she was in a white space. There was a faint figure beside her, who seemed to be in the same soul state as her. Before she could say anything, the other party spoke. You are now in my body. The other party's words almost made her jump. Wasn't she supposed to be in the underworld? Why was she in someone else's body? The other party seemed to have seen through her thoughts and said, I don't know what happened either. I saw your soul and pulled you in. I'm already dead now. My life is up. Since you can enter my body, you should be able to continue living in my place. As long as you promise me that you will take over everything that is mine, I will give you my body, the shadow said. Really? Sima Yue asked. Did that mean that she could come back to life? Yes, but you have to swear that you will be mine in the future. You will live in my place and take care of those bastards for me? Okay, Sima Yue agreed readily. If she could live another life and get rid of the life of an assassin, she would agree to it. If she could even seek revenge from the second in command of the organization. Since that's the case, I will leave my memories with you. Remember that you promised to take revenge for me. Also, you have to be good to my grandfather and brothers. Also, you have to find my parents. I believe that they are still in some corner of the world. The shadow became fainter and fainter, and the voice became fainter and fainter. Sima Yue looked at the other party's reluctant expression and said emotionally, Don't worry, I will definitely help you find your parents. I see that you are not the kind of person who goes back on her words. Since you have agreed, I can leave in peace. After the shadow finished speaking, it turned into specks of light and disappeared completely. Sima Yue suddenly felt a pulling force pulling at her. Her head was in intense pain and she lost consciousness again. When she woke up, she was already lying on the bed. She didn't think that she would really come back to life. But when she looked at the quaint room, she didn't react for a moment. She thought that she was dreaming, but the things in her mind shattered her fantasy. F*ck, so you are a hole, a deep hole. Sima Yue cursed after realizing the reality. This is not the world I came from. Even if I come back to life, I can't take revenge. After looking through the memories, she did not have the energy to complain. This body was not a deep hole, it was a huge hole. This was not the 21st century Earth, but a continent called Yilin. There were no airplanes, cannons, or skyscrapers. It was a place where the strong were respected. The air here was filled with spiritual energy of various attributes. People could absorb the spiritual energy in the air to cultivate and become stronger. The strong were respected, and the weak were prey to the strong. This was especially obvious here. The dignity of the strong was not to be trampled on. If the weak dared to humiliate the strong could kill them directly. If you were a cultivation genius, you would be respected by everyone. If you were a useless person who could not cultivate, you would be looked down upon by everyone. As for this cheap body that Sima Yu had obtained, it was the best of the worst trash. She did not have any foundation in cultivation. She was already 14 years old, but she could not even sense spiritual energy, let alone absorb it into her body to cultivate. Not only that, she was clearly a girl, but her grandfather insisted that she dress up as a man, saying that it was to protect her. However, no matter how she dressed up, she still liked men. She was a love-struck fool and surrounded handsome men all day long, trying to please them. Chapter 2. Sigh. After the 28th sigh, she finally accepted her current identity in this useless body. She was the #1 assassin in the 21st century. Even if she couldn't cultivate, she would still be able to live her own life. But when she thought about her previous body's personality and the reason for her death, she felt powerless. Speaking of which, the previous owner of her body had died quite miserably. She had only gone to deliver food to the capital's #1 young master, Morongen. However, she was thought to be pestering him and was ruthlessly beaten up by his lackeys. They scolded her not only as trash but also as a pervert. And that so-called cultured and refined #1 young master only stood by the side and watched her get beaten up. He didn't even chat with the beauty beside him. Her previous body was beaten up by a group of people until she was on the verge of death. When she was carried back to the general's residence, she saw her grandfather Sima lie and said that she would take revenge. Then she fainted and died not long after. Although her previous body said that she would take revenge for her, but this matter was obviously caused by her. Who asked her to pester him for no reason? Which time didn't she annoy him? So when she appeared in front of him again, it would be strange if he didn't beat her up. However, that Morongen actually watched as you were beaten to death. Those people who beat you were also beating you to death. Don't worry, I will take revenge for you, Sima Yue said faintly. But is your body really unable to cultivate? Those people are all geniuses of the Capital Institute. If you can't cultivate, it will be troublesome to take revenge. But I also don't have the ability to check your body now. Damn, how long will it take for your injuries to heal? Her injuries were too serious. After complaining for a while, Sima Yue fell asleep again. But this time she didn't sleep well. Her brows were knitted and cold sweat kept coming out. Sima Yue, so what if you are a genius of the realm of gods? Today you will still die in my hands. Today your Shiman family will be reunited in hell. Shiman Yue, do you know what this is? This is a high-grade divine weapon, soul-locking lamp. As long as your soul is sucked into it, you will never be able to reincarnate. Even if you want your soul to disappear, you won't be able to. Aren't you always suppressing me? Today you can enjoy the feeling of having your soul locked. Ah! A sharp female voice suddenly sounded. A woman holding a lamp appeared in Sima Yu's dream. A piece of his soul is missing? Even if he was reborn like this, he would not be able to remember what happened in this life, and his strength would not be restored. Whether or not you can repair your soul and create another miracle depends on your luck. Another male and female voice drifted in the thick fog. Sima Yue, who asked you to be so outstanding? Boss isn't here today, so you can go to hell and cry to the king of hell. This is the latest explosive developed by the organization. It's your good fortune to be able to die from it. Sima Yue, go to hell. Shiman Yue, go to hell. Ah. Sima Yu immediately sat up on the bed, panting heavily. Her pajamas were completely soaked in sweat and the hair on both sides of her face was stuck tightly to her cheeks. Her body was trembling because she didn't know if it was because of sadness or anger. Young master, did something happen? A maidservant knocked on the door and asked. Sima Yue tried to calm herself down and said to the person outside the door, I'm fine, you can leave now. Yes. The person outside the door replied, and then there was no more movement. After panting for a while, Sima Yue endured the pain and got off the bed to pour herself a cup of water. Her trembling hands shook the teapot. She drank 3 cups of cold water in a row before she calmed down. She recalled the dream just now, and why did she have 2 names? Sima Yue, Shimin Yue. She muttered these 2 names. Shimin Yue, who is this? Why did she feel pain in her heart when she said this name? After returning to the bed, Sima Yue stared at the antique mosquito net with her eyes wide open. Her mind was filled with the blurry scenes in the dream just now and the words of the unfamiliar voice. Who was that unknown woman? Who was the Shimin Yue that she spoke of? At this moment, a maid's voice sounded from outside the door. General. Is the 5th young master awake? A slightly old voice sounded. General, the young master screamed just now. I asked him and he said he was fine. After that, there was no sound from inside. He might have fallen asleep again. The maid replied. Okay, I got it. You can leave now. Yes. Then there was the sound of the door opening. When the door opened, Sima Yue closed her eyes again. She only heard the sound of footsteps slowly approaching her and then stopping beside the bed. Okay, stop pretending. I know you're awake. Sima Lai said as he looked at the person lying on the bed with her eyes closed. She was discovered. Sima Yue opened her eyes and looked at the person in front of the bed. She did not speak. This was Dongqin Kingdom's #1 expert, her own grandfather. Just like in her memory, he was wearing a black robe. His hair was slightly white and he had a resolute face. When he looked at her, his eyes were filled with love and affection. Is it very painful? Sima Lai saw that Sima Yue did not speak and sat beside the bed. Sima Yue nodded her head. It was indeed very painful. She felt as if all the bones in her body were about to fall apart. Sima Lai took out a jade bottle as if he was performing a magic trick. When Sima Yue saw this, she was shocked. Although she knew that this world had things like space containers, seeing it with her own eyes was still very shocking. This was much more powerful than the bags in her previous world. The jade bottle in Sima Lai's hand was taken out from his space ring. This is the 2nd rank pill that I asked Great Master Shi for. It can quickly heal your injuries. Come eat it and it won't hurt anymore. Sima Lai poured out a black pill from the jade bottle and stuffed it into Sima Yue's mouth. After Sima Yue swallowed the pill, a bitter taste spread in her mouth. Before she could speak, Sima Lai stuffed a candy into her mouth. Great Master Shi said that this pill is a little bitter, but this is a 2nd rank pill. It will take effect quickly. So you have to bear with it. Sima Yue knew that this world had such magical things as pills. It was just like the Western medicine pills in her previous world. However, the effects were many times better than those pills. Moreover, there were many different types of pills with different effects. For example, the pill that she was eating now could heal injuries, help spirit masters recover their spiritual power, help sword masters recover their physical strength, and so on. These pills were also divided into grades: 1st grade, 2nd grade, 3rd grade, and so on. The 1st to 3rd grade were called primary pills, the 4th to 6th grade were middle grade pills, and the 7th to 9th grade were high grade pills. The corresponding alchemists were called primary alchemists, middle grade alchemists, and high grade alchemists. As the grade of the medicinal pill increased, the medicinal effects would naturally become better. Moreover, even medicinal pills of the same grade were divided into low grade, middle grade, high grade, and top grade. The higher the grade, the better the medicinal effects and the higher the price. Chapter 3. But grandfather, are you sure this is the right thing to do? Aren't you just encouraging her to stir up trouble? However, as an orphan in her previous life, she felt warmth in her heart after hearing Sima Lai's words. This is what it feels like to be a family member. A few minutes after eating the pill, all the pain in her body disappeared. In less than half an hour, all the injuries on her body were healed. This was the first time Sima Yue experienced such a miraculous thing. Her heart was filled with curiosity towards this world. Grandfather, this thing is really too miraculous. Sima Yue sat up. She was full of energy again. Haha, not bad. Sima Lai saw Sima Yue open her mouth and nodded his head in praise. Then he sighed and said, "Sigh, it's a pity that my family members don't know how to refine pills. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had to go through so much trouble to get this pill for you." "Don't we have pills at home?" Sima Yue asked. In any case, this was the general's residence. How could they not have pills? Most of the pills in our house are 1st ranked. There are a few 2nd ranked pills that are not used for healing. They can't help you recover quickly. That's why I went to find Sir Shi to ask for pills. Sigh, it's also grandfather's fault for being so hot-tempered. I don't have a good relationship with the alchemists in the capital. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had to spend so much time and let you suffer for so long. Sima Lai said with self-blame. Grandfather, don't be sad. This isn't your fault. It's all because those alchemists are too arrogant. That's why they're not liked. I don't like them either. Sima Yue said, if one day I become an alchemist, I'll definitely slap their faces. Ah, good. Grandfather will wait for you. I'll let them follow your lead. Sima Lai said with a laugh. Both of them were looking forward to their future. They had forgotten that the prerequisite to becoming an alchemist was to first become a spirit master. This was because during the process of condensing the pill, the alchemist needed to inject spiritual energy into the pill furnace. Otherwise, there was no way to condense the pill. On the other hand, Sima Yue was not even a spirit master, let alone an alchemist. Thanks to the magical effect of the pill, Sima Yue recovered quickly and became lively again. The next morning she went out to the streets alone. Although she still had the memories of her predecessor, she still wanted to see what this world was like with her own eyes. This world is really amazing. After walking around 2 streets, Sima Yue stopped in front of a shop and looked at the various animals inside. Seeing an animal that could talk, she couldn't help but sigh. Oh, if it isn't Fifth Young Master. Fifth Young Master, please come in. What do you want today? We have a new batch of mirage beasts, do you want to take a look? When the waiter saw Sima Yue at the door, he hurriedly came out to greet her. He seemed to be very familiar with her previous self. Sima Yue searched through her memories. Sure enough, her predecessor was very familiar with this shop. She would often buy spiritual beasts and give them to those young masters as a way to please them. Because she frequented this shop, she was very familiar with the owner and the waiter. Fifth Young Master, look. This is our new spiritual beast, a level 5 low spiritual beast, a fire fox. And this, a level 6 low spiritual beast, a gale wolf. How is it? Not bad, right? The waiter brought Sima Yue into the shop and came to the front of 2 cages. He pointed at the wolf in the cage and introduced it. And it does look good. Sima Yue looked at the gale wolf in the cage. Although its eyes were lifeless, the fur on its body was very shiny. One look and she could tell that it was of good quality. But I didn't bring any money today, so I don't intend to buy it. I can't even form a contract with it. What's the point of buying a spiritual beast? Everyone knew that the 5th young master of the general's residence was a good-for-nothing. He couldn't form a contract with a spiritual beast at all. Every time he bought a spiritual beast, it would be a gift. But the waiter didn't care what she used the spiritual beast for as long as he could get money from her. 5th young master, do you think you will shortchange our shop? If 5th young master likes it, you can take this spiritual beast first. You can ask someone to send the money over later. The waiter said, AI, the last time young Master Morongan said that he wanted a gale wolf. It's a pity that we didn't have any stock at that time. 5th young master, when you see young Master Morongan, please tell him that the gale wolf has arrived. He must hurry over. Who knows, we might run out of stock very soon. If it was in the past, Sima Yue would definitely say that she wanted this spiritual beast. If she could please Morongan and get him the spiritual beast he wanted, spending some money was nothing. But now she was not the same as before. When she heard the waiter's words, she nodded and replied, Okay, I will tell him the next time I see him. After she finished speaking, she turned around and left the spiritual beast shop. Before the waiter could react, Sima Yue had already left the shop. He touched his forehead and said, I don't have a fever. Why am I having hallucinations? This time when Sima Yue heard that Morongan wanted something, not only did she not buy it, she even left so calmly? If the sun didn't rise from the west, then I must be having hallucinations. Sima Yue walked along the main street and thought about what the waiter had just said. She sighed. The fact that her predecessor liked Morong and was really well known. Even the seller knew how to use this to promote their products. Thinking about the gale wolf in the cage, she couldn't help but sigh at the wonders of this world. Although her predecessor didn't know much about cultivation, but because of Morongan, she had some understanding of spiritual beasts. In this world there were animals that could talk. They were called spiritual beasts. Spiritual beasts could also cultivate just like the demons in her previous life. Low-level spiritual beasts also had their own ranks. The lowest rank was the low-level spiritual beast, followed by sacred beast and divine beast. Low-level spiritual beasts only had their spiritual intelligence activated. They could understand human language and respond accordingly. Sacred beasts could speak human language, which was really amazing. A spirit master could form a contract with a spiritual beast. After forming a contract, the spirit master and the spiritual beast would become one. However, due to the wild nature of spiritual beasts, If a spirit master were to form a contract with a spiritual beast, he would be injured by the spiritual beast. Thus, beast tamers were born. Beast tamers used their ability to tame spiritual beasts and erase their wild nature, turning them into spiritual beasts that could form a contract with a spirit master. After forming a contract with a spiritual beast, it would be a great help to the spirit master. Therefore, beast tamers were especially important. The obedient wolf she saw in the cage was a tamed Gale wolf. During the period of time after being tamed and before forming a contract, it would be very quiet. It would not be wild and would not attack people. Only after forming a contract with a spirit master would its ferocity be released. After being out for a long time, Sima Yue planned to return to the general's residence. Because she was searching for knowledge about beast tamers in her memory, she did not pay attention to the road in front of her. When she turned a corner, she bumped into someone who was walking in front of her. Who is it that is so blind? Do they want to die? The person who was bumped into held the place where he was hurt and scolded. Seeing Sima Yue, the person sneered and said, "They actually said that you are a useless person? Why aren't you dead yet? It seems that I was too soft on you that day." Sima Yue was also shaken by the collision. When she heard the other person's words, she raised her head and the aura on her body suddenly turned cold. Chapter 4. Are you done talking? Sima Yue stared coldly at Li Cheng. You were the one who kicked me the most the last time, right? It's your bad luck that I met you today. Ah. Li Cheng was amused by Sima Yue's words and laughed. From your tone, it seems like you want to settle the score with me? Ah, did I hear wrongly? A piece of trash like you wants to fight with me? Since I didn't beat you to death that day, I'll finish you off today so that you don't embarrass us men again. After speaking, Li Cheng started to gather the spiritual energy in his body and formed a red ball of light in his hand. Although the street Sima Yue was on was very crowded, the alley after turning was very quiet. There was not a single person around and no one would see him killing Sima Yue here. Hence, Li Cheng did not hesitate to make his move. He had been dissatisfied with this piece of trash who had embarrassed all men for a long time. How could someone like her have such an identity? This world was too unfair. Sima Yue saw the ball of light in Li Cheng's hand and knew that this was the power of a spirit master. Although it was not very strong, it was not something that she could withstand. Hence, before Li Cheng could finish forming the ball of light, she quickly attacked him. Her right hand turned into a knife and slashed towards his neck. Li Cheng did not expect that Sima Yue would change so much after not seeing her for a day. Seeing that he was about to kill her, she did not run away and instead attacked him directly. Her movements were like a cunning rabbit and she quickly arrived in front of him. The knife in her hand made him feel a chill. Just as he was about to be slashed by Sima Yue, Li Cheng threw the red ball of light in his hand towards Sima Yue. He took a few steps back and dodged Sima Yue's attack. Although the ball of light was not fully formed, it still had a lot of destructive power. Sima Yue felt the power of the ball of light and knew that she could not take it head-on. She quickly dodged to the right. However, because the distance was too close and the speed of the ball of light was too fast, even though she dodged the attack, her left arm was still burned. Ping! The ball of light landed on the ground and created a small crater. Sima Yue looked at the small crater created by the explosion and was shocked by the power of this spirit energy. Even if she was very powerful in her previous life, compared to this kind of power, it was nothing. Furthermore, this power was coming from a human's body. Hiss! The pain in her arm pulled her back to reality. She lowered her head to take a look. Even though she had been lightly grazed by the edge of the ball of light, her clothes were still burnt. Even her entire arm was burnt. Ah, now you know how strong I am. Li Cheng never thought that Sima Yue would actually be able to escape. However, when he saw that she was shocked by the effect of his spirit energy, he felt a burst of pride. This kind of power is something a piece of trash like you can never have. Why don't I send you on your way so that you can reincarnate earlier? Maybe you will be able to cultivate in your next life. Sima Yue saw that Li Cheng was about to gather his power again and did not give him the chance to do so. She ignored the pain on her arm and ran towards him. With her previous experience, she would not give him the chance to gather his power again. Li Cheng did not expect Sima Yue to run faster than before even though she was injured. Just as he gathered his spiritual energy, Sima Yue was already in front of him. Without saying anything, she lifted her leg and kicked him in the stomach. Li Cheng was sent flying and landed heavily on the ground. Li Cheng spat out a mouthful of blood. He looked at the blood on the ground and was stunned. He was bleeding because of a useless person. You useless person, how dare you hit me? Cough cough. Sima Yue did not say anything. She came to Li Cheng's side before he could stand up and kicked him. Li Cheng was kicked to the ground again before he could stand up. A spiritual master was powerful because they could gather spiritual energy. Their body was no different from a normal person's. After being kicked twice by Sima Yue, Li Cheng was in so much pain that he could not get up. He laid on the ground and groaned. Sima Yue walked over and laughed coldly. "Don't you like to kick me? How does it feel to be kicked?" In her previous life, she was very familiar with the structure of the human body and knew where to kick to cause the most damage. She lifted her leg and kicked him again. "You despicable person, wait until I recover. I will definitely kill you." The pain made Li Cheng lose his mind and he cursed loudly. "You reminded me. If you cut the grass without its roots, it will grow again when the spring breeze blows. Should I not give you the chance to take revenge?" Sima Yue kicked him a few more times just like how he kicked the previous life. She kicked him viciously until he fainted. She thought about how he said that he would take revenge on her. Although she was not afraid of his revenge, she did not want to cause trouble for herself. Didn't he call her a useless person? Then let him become a useless person too. Looking at the stone at the corner of the wall, she suddenly smiled evilly. "Although you are just a hired thug, you wanted her life, so I cannot let you off. Since you hate useless people so much, I will let you have a taste of being useless. I am very kind, you don't have to thank me." Ah! A painful scream came from the alley, causing Sima Yue to squint her eyes. She threw away the bloody stone in her hand and clapped her hands, saying, "You wanted her life, so I crippled your meridians. This can be considered as revenge for her." When you wake up, enjoy the feeling of being called a useless person. Ouch, it really hurts. After speaking, she held her arm and left the alley, walking towards the general's residence as if nothing had happened. After she left, two figures appeared at the end of the alley. One of them was dressed in purple, with a devilish face and a slender body. His expression was indifferent, but his eyes sparkled with interest. The other person had a head of fiery red hair, and his clothes were like burning flames. One look and one could tell that he was not a real human. A shape-shifting beast. I didn't think that I would see such a show when I was passing by. A little girl with no spiritual energy actually crippled a spirit master. So ruthless, Fire Qilin praised. Wu Lingyu looked at the person on the ground and thought about how the girl had crippled him without blinking. He smiled evilly, saying, "Not bad indeed." Although she wore an illusion ring to hide her gender, it was useless in front of them. They could tell that she was a girl with one look. "Master, you are the holy son of the sage pavilion. Don't act like this." Fire Qilin looked at Wu Lingyu and Sima Yue and reminded him. Chapter 5. "Oh my God, young master, how did you get hurt again? Who injured you? Let me see how badly you're hurt." The housekeeper saw Sima Yue in the courtyard and hurried over to check on her condition. Seeing the housekeeper's distressed expression, Sima Yue smiled and said, "Uncle Quan, I'm fine. It's just a small burn." "What do you mean by a small burn? It's obviously a big one," Uncle Quan said in distress. "It's fine, it doesn't hurt that much. I'll go back and let the maids apply some medicine." Sima Yue comforted. Although the people outside kept calling her trash, no one in the general's residence had ever looked down on her. Instead, because she couldn't cultivate, they loved her even more. Grandfather was like this, her brothers were like this, and even the housekeeper and servants were like this. It was a pity that the previous owner didn't know how to cherish her fortune and made the people close to her sad more than once. "Okay, you go back first and let the maids treat it for you. I'll go tell the general and bring you some good pills," Uncle Quan said. She had already eaten the most expensive pills in the general's residence. Where else could she find good pills? Although she thought this way, she still nodded and returned to her courtyard. There weren't many maids in her courtyard. Other than Chun Jian and Yunyu, who heard the conversation on the first day when she woke up, the other two were the ones who cooked. Seeing that Sima Yue was injured, Chun Jian and Yunyu were shocked, but they still quickly treated her wound. Looking at their familiar movements, it was obvious that the previous owner of her body had suffered many injuries before. After treating the wound, Chun Jian took out a pill and gave it to Sima Yue to eat. However, this was a low-ranked pill, and the wound that she had suffered was caused by her spirit energy, so even after eating the pill, it didn't seem to heal. After a while, Sima Lai came and saw that Sima Yue's arm was burned. He was distressed and angry as he said, "Why did you go out by yourself again?" "Grandfather." Sima Yue saw that Sima Lai was angry and used her right hand to pull on the corner of Sima Lai's clothes. She shook and said, "I just wanted to go out for a walk." I didn't expect to meet the person who hit me that day, so I taught him a lesson. I broke his tendons and turned him into a trash who can't cultivate. Compared to him, I'm already considered good. Actually, it's nothing. I'll be fine in a few days. Although she had never been burned in her previous life, she had suffered many other injuries such as gunshot wounds and knife wounds. These injuries were nothing in her eyes. At most, it would leave an ugly scar on her arm in the future. Seeing that Sima Yue was no longer crying and throwing a tantrum like before, Sima Lai felt a lot more gratified. This was more like the young master of the general's residence. He took out a bottle and poured out the pills inside, saying, "These are the pills we exchanged with Great Master Shi last time. Quickly eat them. Grandpa, my injury is nothing. We'll be fine after some time. This pill is so valuable, it's better to keep it for emergency use in the future." Sima Yu said as she pushed Sima Lai's hand away. "What do you mean nothing? How could he say that it was nothing when he had such a big burn? In any case, our family is still a dignified general's residence, so we won't feel heartache over a single pill. Be good, eat it and your wound will be fine," Sima Lai said as he glared at Sima Yue. Sima Yue placed the pill in her mouth. Although it tasted bitter, her heart was filled with sweetness. In her previous life, she was an orphan and was taken in by an organization. After that, she trained on her own. Nobody really cared about her. Who would have thought that in her second life, she would be able to experience the love and care of her family? "Grandpa, you will be my grandpa in the future," she said silently in her heart. "Aha, fifth bro has grown up. You even know how to comfort your grandpa." At this time, a clear voice came from outside the door. Following that, 4 men walked in. They were the 4 young masters of the Sima family, Sima Yu Qi, Sima Yu Ming, Sima Yu Ran and Sima Yu Lu. The one who had just spoken was the eldest, Sima Yu Qi. "Eldest brother, second brother, third brother, fourth brother, why did you all come back together?" Sima Yue said as she looked at the 4 of them. "We heard that you were beaten up, so of course we came back to take a look. We just happened to reach home at about the same time," eldest brother said. After that, he sized up Sima Yue and asked, "Do you feel any discomfort anywhere?" They were all out of town. When they heard that she was heavily injured, they all rushed back. Hearing Sima Yu Qi's question, Sima Yue shook her head, saying, "No, the pill that Grandpa told me was very effective. I don't feel any discomfort at all." "Grandpa, you went to look for an alchemist?" second brother Sima Yu Ming asked. I saw that the pills in the house were too low ranked, so I went to Great Master Shi to ask for 2 second-ranked muscle-growing pills," Sima Lai said. "That guy has been eyeing our 200-year-old ginseng. Grandpa, you didn't use that to exchange for it, did you?" Eldest brother Sima Yu Qi had always been the manager of the family's finances. He was the clearest about what was going on in the house and outside. Sima Lai nodded, saying, "I went to look for him. He said that second-ranked pills were too hard to refine. He only had a few of them and they were very precious. He wanted me to use that ginseng to exchange for it. I was anxious, so I agreed. A second-ranked pill is worth 20 gold coins. A 200-year-old ginseng is worth at least 50 gold coins. However, using this to exchange for fifth brother's recovery is still worth something," Sima Yuran said, not feeling the slightest bit of heartache for the 1,000-year-old ginseng. "That's right. If we don't have the ginseng, then so be it. As long as fifth brother is fine, it's fine," fourth brother Sima Yulu said. Sima Yue sat on the bed and looked at the 5 people surrounding her. She heard them casually talk about the price of the pill and the ginseng. She sighed in her heart at how much this family pampered her. In the current world, gold and silver coins were used as currency. 1 gold coin equals 100 silver coins equals 100 million copper coins. Most people used copper coins and silver coins as their main source of income. Only the upper-class people generally used gold coins. 20 gold coins was enough for an ordinary family of 5 to live for a year. However, they didn't care about her health at all. "Fifth brother, who beat you up? Tell us, we'll take revenge for you." Fourth brother Sima Yulu was not very old. He was only 3 or 4 years older than Sima Yue. He was also the most impulsive. Of the 5 young masters of the general's family, the eldest was 29 years old, the second was 24, the third was 22, the fourth was 18 and the fifth was 14. The first 4 were the geniuses of the Dongqin kingdom. The eldest was already a 9th-ranked spirit master, the second and third were already 5th-ranked, and the fourth was already a spirit master. Although he was only 1st-ranked, his talent was frightening compared to those of the same age. Only the famous 5th young master had not even awakened his spirit energy. He could not feel the spiritual energy around him. He was not even the lowest-ranked spirit master. He was just a waste who could not cultivate at all. Chapter 6. Good Yu has grown up. Sima Lai said excitedly. Grandfather, Yu was immature in the past and made grandfather and my brothers sad. It was all Yu's fault. Sima Yu said. From the memories of her predecessor, she could tell that she had done many wrong things, especially because of those handsome guys. She had hurt her family many times. However, in the depths of her heart, she still loved her family. If not, she would not want her to live on in her place. She did it so that they would not be sad when they knew that she had died. Let the past be the past. It's good enough that fifth bro understands his mistakes. Furthermore, we have never blamed you for what happened in the past. Third bro Sima Yuran said. The others nodded in agreement. I will definitely change my habits in the future and live well. Ah, that's good. Since you said that you want to take revenge on your own, your brothers will not interfere. If you need anything, just tell us. We will be on standby. Sima Yu unknowingly felt tears welling up in her eyes. She did not know if it was because she was touched or if it was because of the lingering emotions in her body. Because of how they protected her, she kept them in her heart. Alright, let's let fifth bro rest. Even if the effect of the pill is good, he will still feel tired. The considerate big bro said. Alright, it's getting late. We will go back first. Fifth bro, if you need anything you must tell us. Don't go alone. Yes, if you go alone, what if you get hurt? So don't go alone. After reminding him 1,000 times, the four brothers and Sima Lai left Sima Yu's house. Phew! When she was the only one left in the house, Sima Yu heaved a sigh of relief and said enviously, You really have a family that loves you dearly. You are so lucky. I've never thought that I would be loved and doted on by my family. So thank you. I will live well for you, Sima Yu. After she calmed down, Sima Yu shouted towards the door, Men! Young master. The two servant girls from before pushed open the door and came in, bowing to her. I want to take a bath. Sima Yu looked at the two beautiful maids and said, Young master, please wait for a moment. We will go and prepare. The two maidservants went out and came back in a short while. The two maidservants carried a wooden bucket in and then went outside to get several large buckets of hot water and poured it into the bucket. Young master, it's done. All right, you may leave. Sima Yu waved her hands and the two maidservants left. They did not forget to close the door when they left. Sima Yu got down from the bed. She took off her clothes and threw them on the floor as she walked. When she reached the bathtub, she was already naked. She lowered her head and looked at her chest that was like an airport runway, then looked down at her lower body and muttered, You really look like a man. She stepped into the bathtub and sat down, allowing the water to envelop her entire body. In her previous life, she liked to take baths. She felt that this kind of gentle wrapping could wash away all the pain on her body, allowing her to continue to be strong when she was tired. She soaked in the water until the temperature of the water slowly became cold. Only then did she reach out her hand to check. There was a ring on her left hand. She had been wearing this ring for as long as she could remember. Sima Lai had told her that this ring was an illusion ring that could make her look like a man. He had also told her that she must never take this ring off, especially when there were outsiders around. But even so, when the previous person was alone in the house, she would sometimes take this ring off. In order to prevent her secret from being discovered by the servant girls, she told them that without her orders, they were not allowed to enter the house. Now that she wanted to check her body, she had to remove the effect of this illusion ring. She reached out and touched a round button on the side of the ring. She used her thumb and index finger to gently turn it. She heard a click sound and her body instantly changed. She placed her right index finger, middle finger and ring finger on her left wrist and carefully felt her pulse. Although she was an assassin in her previous life, on the surface, her identity was an associate professor of Chinese medicine at a medical university. Moreover, she was the youngest associate professor in the entire school. Usually, they would work at their own positions and only go out when they received a mission. The longer she felt her pulse, the more serious her expression became. She then let go of her hand and raised it up. She found a red and a black spot under her armpits that looked like moles. She previously felt that there was something wrong with her body, so she suspected that there was a reason why she could not cultivate. She used her right index finger to touch the spot under her left armpit and muttered, There really is a problem with this body. After Sima Yu finished her bath and put on her clothes, she changed the illusion ring back to its original file. She walked in front of the mirror and found that her current appearance was quite photogenic. Although she could not be considered a legendary beauty, she could still be considered an elegant young master. It was just that her usual behavior made people think that she was gay and subconsciously ignored her appearance. She called the maids in to carry the bathtub out and asked for the names of the two maids. One was called Yunyu and the other was called Chunjian. Both of their names were quite poetic. The two of them had been serving Sima Yue since young and always remembered that they could not enter the house without the young master's orders. Therefore, when the other maids came and went, the two of them were always there. They could be considered as loyal and devoted to Sima Yue. However, when they saw her punish the maids who entered the house without permission, they were a little afraid of her. Yunyu, Chunjian, young master is hungry. Sima Yue looked at the two of them and said, people who cultivated could obtain energy from the spiritual energy in the air to support their body. Therefore, the stronger a person was, the less they needed to eat. Once they reached the level of a great spirit master, they basically did not need to eat. However, many people still ate every few days to satisfy their cravings. As for Sima Yue, this trash who couldn't cultivate at all, she couldn't live without food. This servant has already prepared the meal. Do you want me to serve it to young master now? Yunyu said. Okay. Hurry up. Yunyu, you are too kind. When Sima Yue heard that there was food, she immediately became energetic. Chapter 7. Sima Yue was waiting in her room for the delicious meal that she had imagined. However, when she saw the food that Yunyu and Chunjian brought over, she was completely stunned. This is the food that you prepared for me? Sima Yue pointed at the food that was simply boiled and asked. She had only eaten meat porridge yesterday, so she did not know what the food here was like. When she saw that it was just boiled food, she was extremely shocked. We deserve to die. Yunyu and Chunjian immediately knelt on the ground and kowtowed non-stop to beg for mercy. Hey, what are you doing? I'm not blaming you. Hurry up and get up. Sima Yue shouted when she saw their reaction. She then found out that her predecessor was very strict with these two servant girls. If she did not get her way, she would beat and scold them. When the two servant girls saw that she was angry, they reflexively knelt on the ground. Thank you, young master. The two servant girls got up from the ground with a look of lingering fear on their faces. Sima Yue ignored the two servant girls. She held her stomach with her left hand and used her right hand to pick up a pair of chopsticks. She tried to find something that she could eat, but after trying for 10 minutes, she gave up. She placed her chopsticks on the table and said helplessly, "Bring me 2 fruits." After gnawing on 2 large fruits, Sima Yue went to bed resentfully. She rubbed her empty stomach and muttered, "I still need to eat. You're always so gluttonous. You have already reached the god tier, but you still can't live without food." A gentle and loving voice suddenly sounded in her mind. It was as if it had passed through time and space and came from a distant memory. Whose voice is this? Is it my predecessor's memory? Sima Yue muttered to herself. However, she felt that it was not the case. She was a cultivation trash, so how could she reach the god tier? Then who is the one who said this? Who is the one who said this to? When dinner was still hard to swallow, Sima Yue ran to the kitchen and fiddled around for a while, cooking 2 simple dishes for herself. She had been in this world for 2 days and this was the first time she had eaten so much. When she slept that night, she had the same dream as last time. The same shrill voice said the same thing. Sima Yue, go to hell. She could tell that this was the voice of the second-in-command in her previous life. Sima Yue, go to hell. If you die, I'll be the genius of this continent. Ah, who was this? Why didn't she have any impression at all? Go to hell. The 2 voices intertwined, causing her to wake up. Her clothes were already drenched in sweat, and her eyes were filled with sorrow as she looked up. Why 2 names again? That night, Sima Yue did not fall asleep. Every time she closed her eyes, her mind would be filled with those 2 names. Sima Yue, Shima Yue. However, no matter how hard she searched through her memories, she could only find traces of Sima Yue. As for Shima Yue, no matter if it was her previous life or her current life, there was no trace of her. The result of a sleepless night was that when she looked in the mirror the next morning, she realized that her eyes had become panda eyes. While eating breakfast, she successfully entertained her grandfather and brothers. Why haven't 3rd brother and 4th brother gone to the sect yet? Eldest brother, 2nd brother, aren't you going out today? Sima Yue sat at the table and started eating breakfast. When she saw that the food was similar to yesterday's, she frowned and picked up her chopsticks. We're waiting for you. It won't be too late for us to go out after confirming that you're fine. Sima Yuchi said. What happened to your eyes? Sima Yuming asked when he saw the dark circles under her eyes. There were 2 big mosquitoes in the house last night. They were so noisy that I couldn't sleep well. Sima Yue casually made up a story. It was already the beginning of summer, and the mosquitoes had indeed started to appear. Nobody doubted her words. Sima Yue ate half of her breakfast and put down her chopsticks. Why aren't you eating? Sima Lai asked. It doesn't taste good. I can't eat. Sima Yue replied. Didn't you eat this in the past? Sima Yue looked at the breakfast. It was no different from before. Since Yue doesn't want to eat, you can take it away, Sima Lai said. The serving girls who were waiting on the side quickly took the food away. Sima Yuqi and the others had no objections. They didn't need to eat much now. They only came over to eat with Sima Yue. Then we'll go to the sect. Sima Yu and the others said. We'll go out as well. Sima Yuqi said. Go on, go on. Sima Lai waved his hand and said. When they had all left, he asked Sima Yue, Yue, what do you plan to do today? Sima Yue originally wanted to go to the library to take a look, but she thought about how it was always simple food. She blurted out, I want to go to the kitchen to take a look and teach the chef how to cook. Teach the chef how to cook. Sima Lai was shocked by Sima Yue's reply. Yeah, didn't the Dongqin emperor call grandfather to the palace to discuss something? I'll stay at home and not go anywhere, Sima Yue said. She knew that Sima Lai asked her this because he was worried about her. He was afraid that she would be bullied if she went out. Now that she had a guarantee he could go out without worry. Although Sima Lai didn't really believe Sima Yue's words, because she had said the same thing in the past, but when he stepped out, she followed behind him. However, seeing that she walked directly to the kitchen, he could only choose to believe her again. This time, Sima Yue didn't go back on her words. She really stayed in the kitchen for the whole day. When she saw Sima Lai coming back from the palace, she said, Grandfather, come and try the dishes that the chef just cooked. As she spoke, she picked up her chopsticks and put it in Sima Lai's mouth. Sima Lai followed her hand and ate the food. He said in surprise, What dish is this? Why is it so delicious? This is the dish that I taught them to cook. How is it? The taste is not bad, right? Sima Yue said. Aha, it is indeed better than the previous one. Sima Lai said with a smile. Of course they practice for the whole day to get to this level. Sima Yue said. Although their cooking still didn't meet her requirements, it was much better than the 2 meals that she ate. Later on, she saw that Yunyu and Chen Jian were more talented in this, so she pulled them to learn together. The dish in her hand was cooked by Yunyu. In the future, let them cook for you. Sima Lai said, if you have nothing to do, you can also spend your time on this. Chapter 8. You want to read books? Sima Lai looked at Sima Yue in surprise. His reaction caused everyone in the kitchen to look at Sima Yue strangely. Actually, they could not be blamed for having such a big reaction. The main thing was that Sima Yue was famous for being trash and an idiot. Not to mention reading books, other than knowing a few words, she had never read a single book. She had also never been to the academy. For such a person to suddenly say that she wanted to read books, it would be strange if everyone was not surprised. Cough cough. Sima Lai coughed twice and said, Since you want to read, then let's go take a look together. Sima Lai finished speaking and left with his hands behind his back. Sima Yue quickly followed. The two of them arrived at a 3-story building in the middle of the courtyard. It was a simple building with a simple courtyard. This kind of building was not at all conspicuous in the general's residence. No one would even guess that this was the library pavilion. This is the library pavilion. Sima Lai used the key to open the door and said to Sima Yue behind him. This was Sima Yue's first time here. Although this building was between her courtyard and the main entrance, she had never seen it before. This is the key that belongs to you. Sima Lai took out a key from his spatial ring and handed it to her. Sima Yue's 4 brothers all had keys. Only she did not like to read, so they did not give it to her. They were afraid that she would lose the key. Sima Yue took the key and placed it in her pocket. She did not have any spiritual energy now, so she could not use the spatial ring. Okay, you can choose whatever book you want to read. Grandfather still has things to do, so he will go back to the study. If you need anything, you can find me in the study. Sima Lai said as he opened the door for her. Sima Yue nodded at Sima Lai and watched him leave. Then she turned and walked into the library pavilion. Although she already knew that there was a problem with her body, there were some differences between the medicinal ingredients in her previous life and this life. At least some of the names were different. She had to investigate clearly before she could find the right medicine to cure herself. Sima Yue arrived at the library. She did not expect that the inconspicuous building would be so magnificent. She looked around and saw a spiral staircase in the middle. The spiral staircase connected to 4 floors and there were many books on each floor. Not only that, the space that didn't look big from the outside was actually as big as a football field from his previous life. Although it got smaller as it went up, the top floor was still bigger than a basketball court. Oh my god, what is this thing? This is too miraculous. Sima Yue was stunned by the magnificent view in front of her, especially by the difference between the inside and outside of the building. When she regained her senses, she began to feel anxious again. Where am I supposed to start looking for so many books? I should have asked Grandpa. She first searched the first floor. After searching for a while, she found that the books here were all placed together in the same category. If this row of bookshelves was filled with books of the same type, then the next 10 rows were filled with books of the same type. Ha, found it. After searching for 2 hours, she finally found a book related to medicine in the middle of the first floor. She searched along the spine for a while and found a book related to medicinal ingredients. She found that this floor was filled with medicinal ingredients. She rubbed her hungry stomach and took out a few books. Holding them in her arms, she walked out of the library. When she walked out of the library, the door behind her locked itself with a click. At this time, the sky was completely dark. Sima Yue returned to her courtyard. Yunyu and Chun Jian saw that she was holding a stack of books in her arms. They hurried forward and asked, "Young master, are you going to eat dinner now?" "Yes, I'm hungry." "Bring the food directly to my room. Also, Yunyu, go tell Grandpa that I will be reading in my room for the next 2 days. I won't be eating." Sima Yue rubbed her stomach and returned to her room. Chun Jian went to the kitchen to prepare dinner for Sima Yue. Yunyu carried the books into her room and went to find Sima Lai. Sima Yue picked up a book and began to read. The books she looked for were all relatively shallow medical books. They were meant for beginners. The medicinal ingredients in the books were relatively common and easy to identify. In her previous life, her IQ was twice as high as the average person's, so she learned everything very quickly. In addition, she was originally very familiar with Chinese medicine. The reason she was reading these medical books now was to compare them with the ones in her previous life. Therefore, her reading speed was very fast. When Chun Jian brought her dinner, she had already read more than half of the first book. Chun Jian saw that she was swallowing the book and couldn't help but shake her head. It seemed that this young master didn't read properly. "Young master, the food is ready," Chun Jian said as she placed the food on the table. Sima Yue put down the book and came to the table. Seeing that the dinner was completely different from yesterday's, she nodded her head in satisfaction and said, "This is what I call a meal." After quickly finishing the dinner, Sima Yue chased the 2 girls out and returned to the table to continue reading. After reading the first book, she found that the common medicinal ingredients here were similar to the ones in her previous life. However, there were some differences. For example, the names were different, or there were more types of medicinal ingredients with the same medicinal properties. There were also some medicinal ingredients that she had never seen before. However, she found that she had brought back a set of books. Inside the books were all medicinal ingredients with the same medicinal properties. Knowing this, Sima Yue quickly found the medicinal ingredients that she needed according to the medicinal properties. More than half of the names are actually different. Fortunately, I found a medical book to compare with. Sima Yue looked at the list of prescriptions and stretched her body. Only then did she realize that it was almost dawn. Because she did not sleep well last night and stayed up so late tonight, she felt that her eyes were about to close. Thus, she crawled into her bed and fell asleep very quickly. She didn't have any dreams that night. She slept all the way until noon. When she opened her sleepy eyes and saw the mosquito net with ancient patterns, she thought she was dreaming for a moment. Grumble, her hungry stomach began to growl, causing her to slowly come back to her senses. Those memories slowly came back. She touched her forehead and muttered, "So this is not a dream." She got up and put on her clothes. Yunyu came in to help her wash up. Chun Jian had already prepared lunch for her. After lunch, she took the 2 prescriptions that she had written last night and went to find Sima Lai. When Sima Lai saw Sima Yue, he was a little surprised. He thought that she had said yesterday that she would stay in her courtyard and read for the next 2 days. How come she could not sit still on the second day? Or did something happen to her? "Grandfather, I have something to ask you." Without waiting for Sima Lai to ask, Sima Yue spoke first. "What's wrong?" Sima Lai saw Sima Yue's serious expression and waved his hand to dismiss the guards. Chapter 9. Grandfather, I suspect that my inability to cultivate is not due to congenital causes, but rather due to acquired causes. Sima Yue said. "You're saying?" Sima Lai looked at her in disbelief. Sima Yue nodded and said, "I've been poisoned, and it's a poison that's blocking my meridians, so I think that my inability to cultivate is related to this." Peng, Sima Lai stood up from the stool in shock, and because he used too much strength, the stool toppled over. What you said is true? Sima Lai looked at Sima Yue and asked. Sima Yue nodded and said, I'm very sure. Grandfather, although the poison I've been afflicted with is rare, it's not hard to detect. Furthermore, this poison seems to have been in my body for a long time, and it seems that I was poisoned when I was born. Previously, the king had sent people to check on you a few times, and they were all famous doctors or alchemists. They only found that there was a problem with your body, but they didn't find out that you were poisoned. Sima Lai said. Sima Yue knew that Dongqin Kingdom's King Xingjianqian had always regarded Sima Lai highly, and the people he sent were definitely not ordinary people. If even they did not find out, then this poison was definitely not common in this world. Maybe it's because this poison is not common in this continent, and besides the blocked meridians there are no other symptoms. If it wasn't for the 2 small dots under my armpits, I wouldn't have found out. So it's normal that the other doctors did not find out. Sima Yue said. When your father brought you here, he only said that your mother was injured when she was pregnant with you, so he felt that your body was not well, and thought that it was because of that. He never thought that it was because of poison. Sima Lai said. Grandfather, when I was born, wasn't I at home? What do you mean my father brought me here? Sima Yue felt that Sima Lai's words were a little strange and asked. Cough cough, when your parents gave birth to you they were not in Dongqin Kingdom. You were brought back half a year after you were born, and at that time your father was alone. After he left you behind, he said that he wanted to find your mother and never came back. Sima Lai recalled. That's right, Yue, how did you know that you were poisoned? Who checked it for you? Quickly tell grandfather, I'll find him to cure you. Sima Yue shook her head saying, Grandfather, don't worry. No one else checked it for me. I found it myself. You? Sima Lai looked at Sima Yue in disbelief and said, Don't lie to grandfather, is there anything that you can't tell grandfather? Did that person ask you to keep it a secret? Sima Yue to read, Sima Yue to Sima Yue to Sima Yue to Sima Lai to tell. To keep this secret. To make it cure to cure. To keep it. Yes, Grandpa knows. Sima Lai nodded. He waited for Sima Yue to return and took a look at the prescription. Although the words were ugly, they were words that Sima Yue did not recognize in the past. He said, I knew it, how could it be? Men, go out and get some medicine according to this prescription. Yes, General. 2 guards came in from outside. They took the prescription from Sima Lai's hands and left. Sima Yue had finished her business and leisurely returned home. After returning to her courtyard, she locked herself in her room to read. She planned to read these medical books when she had the time and study them in depth. Very quickly, the medicine Sima Yue asked for was delivered. She checked all the medicinal herbs. After confirming that there were no problems, she asked Yue to bring 1 set to the kitchen in her courtyard and boil it into a bowl of medicine. After drinking it, she asked them to prepare a bathtub. Then she called them out and locked herself in the room. She threw the other set of medicine into the bathtub. When the water in the bathtub turned bright red, she took off her clothes and slowly sank into the water. Hiss! A burning sensation surrounded her the moment she entered the water. Pain spread throughout her body. Damn it, I didn't expect it to hurt so much. She felt as if her whole body was burning. All her nerves were unusually sensitive at this moment. She could not help but curse in her heart. The medicine in her body also began to take effect. Under the combination of the two, she felt as if her body was about to explode. The red water slowly became clear. She suddenly felt dizzy and a fishy taste rushed to her throat. Sima Yue spat out a mouthful of black blood. The blood splattered on the ground like black plum blossoms. But after spitting out the black blood, her dizziness slowly subsided. It's much smaller now. Sima Yue reached out and touched the small dot under her armpit. She felt that it was much smaller now. Looks like this poison needs a few more times before it can be completely removed. She got out of the bathtub, put on her clothes and kicked the bathtub. The bathtub shook and a lot of the water spilled out, washing away all the blood on the ground. Young master, did something happen? Yunyu and Chunjian asked from outside. Oh, I accidentally tripped over the bathtub. The water spilled on the ground. Come in and clean it up. Sima Yue said. Yunyu and Chunjian pushed the door open and saw the wet ground. They quickly cleaned up the bathtub and cleaned up the water on the ground. After that, Sima Yue, other than going to eat with Sima Lai, spent the rest of her time reading in the courtyard. She had almost finished reading all the medical books that she took out from the hidden book pavilion. 7 days passed quickly. This was the last time she was going to soak in the medicinal bath. Sima Yue sank her whole body into the water. After a quarter of an hour, she spat out a mouthful of poisonous blood that was almost the same color as normal blood. She reached out and touched her armpit. The small dots on both sides were gone. She checked her pulse again. The poison in her body had been completely removed. Although she did not know if she could cultivate after the poison was removed, it could not hide her good mood. Like a few days ago, she washed away the blood and let Yunyu and Chun Jian come in to clean up. She took the key and went to the hidden book pavilion again. This time she wanted to find some cultivation books to study. Chapter 10. Sima Yu's previous self had an impression of this book because she was given this book on her first day at the academy. Unfortunately, she had no interest in cultivation at that time, so she threw it on the table and never looked at it. Even after she left the academy, the book was still in the drawer of the table. Sima Yue leaned against the bookshelf and read the book page by page. The more she read, the more surprised she was. This world was really a fantasy world. According to the book, people could cultivate because there was spiritual energy in the air. When the spiritual energy was absorbed into the body, it could be converted into spiritual energy. The more spiritual energy there was, the stronger one's strength would be. According to the difference in strength, spirit masters were divided into many ranks. They were spiritual knight, spiritual master, great spiritual master, spiritual king, spiritual overlord, spiritual emperor, and spiritual paragon. The corresponding colors of spiritual energy were red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, and purple. Every rank was further divided into 9 subranks from 1 to 9. Each subrank was marked with a small star, and each subrank was marked with a moon. For example, when a level 6 spiritual knight was releasing spiritual energy, there would be 6 small stars beside his feet. A level 6 spiritual master would have a moon and 6 small stars. A great spiritual master would have 2 moons and so on. Even though this world was dominated by spirit masters, they were still rare because not everyone could sense the spiritual energy in the air. However, because spirit masters were powerful, they enjoyed a high status in this world. Other than spirit masters, there were other professions. The corresponding profession was sword master. Sword master was the kind of person who could not sense the spiritual energy in the air and mainly cultivated sword energy. Other than practicing the sword, sword master also trained their body because their strong body could withstand more sword energy. Even though spirit masters and sword masters were rare in this world, there were still a lot of them compared to the other professions. This was because the other professions were even rarer. These professions were alchemist, blacksmith, beast tamer, and array master. Each profession had its own uniqueness. Sima Yue finished reading the book and had a rough understanding of the professions. So to become an alchemist, one must first become a spirit master. Previously, I was still thinking of learning alchemy. Looks like I'll have to cultivate first. Sima Yue knocked her head against the bookshelf and mumbled to herself, the other professions seem pretty good too. Furthermore, there were actually animals that could talk in this world. It's really a fantasy world. Sima Yue was talking about spirit beasts. Spirit beasts could also cultivate just like the monsters in his previous life. Low spirit beasts also had corresponding ranks. The lowest rank was low spirit beast, followed by sacred beast, divine beast, and sacred beast. Low spirit beasts only had their intelligence activated, so they could understand human language and respond accordingly. Saint beasts could speak human language, while sacred beasts could transform into human form. However, sacred beasts had always been a legendary existence. In this world, even sacred beasts were rare. A spirit master could form a contract with a spirit beast. After forming a contract, the spirit master and the spirit beast would become a single entity. However, due to the wild nature of the spirit beast, if one were to form a contract directly, one would be injured by the spirit beast. Hence, beast tamers were born. Beast tamers used their taming ability to erase the wild nature of the spirit beast, turning it into a spirit beast that could form a contract with a spirit master. Because the spirit beast would be a great help to the spirit master, beast tamers were especially important. However, in order to become a beast tamer, the prerequisite was to be a spirit master. Other than that, weapon masters and array masters were both spirit masters. This made Sima Yue speechless. Sigh, looks like I can only cultivate first. Sima Yue got up from the floor and searched the bookshelf for a while. She found the most basic book on cultivation. Seeing that it was getting late, she brought the book back to her room. After eating dinner, she locked the door and sat on her bed to read the book. Then, she tried to meditate according to the book to feel the spiritual energy in the air. At first she did not feel anything. Later on she seemed to feel something moving around her. It was not until dawn that she could feel the colorful light. Sima Yue opened her eyes and interrupted her meditation. She was puzzled. Didn't the book say that there was only one color? Why did she feel that there were several colors? So strange. She did not understand why she felt that there were several colors. The book clearly said that one could only feel one color. Could it be that her method was wrong? She read the book again from the beginning and found that she was following the book's method. There was nothing wrong. So where did the problem lie? She thought for a while and decided to ask Sima Lai. Sima Lai was now a spirit emperor expert. He would definitely know the answer to this question. After finding Sima Lai, Sima Yue asked him about her doubts. This is actually very simple. Sima Lai looked at his granddaughter who was looking up at him and said with a smile, "The spiritual energy that you cultivate will have different colors depending on the attribute." Attribute? Yes. This attribute is the type of spiritual energy that you can cultivate. The color of the fire attribute was red, and when cultivating it would absorb red light. The color of the wood attribute was green, and when cultivating it would absorb green light. Similarly, the color of the water attribute was blue, the color of the metal attribute was gold, the color of the earth attribute was brown, the color of the light attribute was white, and the color of the darkness attribute was black. Generally, the color of the light that you can sense will allow you to cultivate spiritual energy of the same attribute. So it's like this. Sima Yue nodded, indicating that she understood. Thinking about the colorful light she saw this morning, she asked again, "What if I can sense many colors of light?" Sima Lai did not know why Sima Yue was so interested in cultivation today, but he still patiently answered. "If you can sense many colors of light, then you are the so-called multi-elemental spirit master." Multi-elemental spirit master. Yes, for example, if you can sense red and gold light, then you are a fire and gold dual elemental spirit master. If you can sense 3 types, then you are a 3-elemental spirit master. However, multi-elemental spirit masters are not common. If they exist, they are usually highly valued. Chapter 11. When Sima Yue heard Sima Lai's words, she originally wanted to tell him that she was an all-rounder, but after thinking about it, she decided not to. She only told him that she could sense spiritual energy, but this was enough to make him excited. "Yue, is what you said true? You can really sense spiritual energy?" Sima Lai suddenly hugged Sima Yue and asked excitedly. Sima Yue saw Sima Lai's excited look and couldn't help but laugh. She nodded and said, "Yes, my poison has been cured. Last night I tried to cultivate and this morning I felt a light surrounding me." What? Sima Lai suddenly froze and looked at Sima Yue with a strange expression. Sima Yue was frightened by Sima Lai's expression. Could it be that she didn't sense spiritual energy before and she made a mistake? She carefully looked at Sima Lai and said, "Grandfather, is it because I can't cultivate? That isn't spiritual energy?" Ha 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 ha. Sima Lai didn't answer Sima Yue's question, but instead laughed loudly and said, "I knew that my Yue wasn't trash but a genius. Ha ha ha, no, a genius among geniuses." Sima Yue looked at Sima Lai's excited look. Although he didn't answer her, she understood what he meant and couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. Sima Lai laughed enough and slowly calmed down, saying, "Yue, you only spent a night to sense spiritual energy. This is something that no one has ever done before." Thinking back to when grandfather was called a genius, he also used around 4 to 5 days to sense a light. Most people meditate for half a month and still not be able to do it. As for your brothers, the shortest one used a week. Ha ha ha, not only can you cultivate now, you also have an extremely high talent. Sima Yue was stunned by Sima Lai's words. She thought that spending a night was considered long, but she didn't expect it to be so short. If that was the case, then her cultivation speed would be extremely fast. What color of light did you sense?" Sima Lai asked as he thought of the question she had asked about his attributes. Sima Yue thought that it would be better for her not to reveal the fact that she was an all-rounder before she became strong enough to avoid being envied and framed like in her previous life. Furthermore, Sima Lai had just said that the entire family had not appeared for hundreds of thousands of years. If her matters were to be exposed, it might bring disaster to this family. "Grandpa, I can only sense red light spots," Sima Yue replied. Sima Lai and her brothers were all fire spirit masters, so it was normal for her to say that she was a fire spirit master. "Yes, everyone in my family is of the fire element. Looks like you are one too." Sima Lai nodded his head and said, "Tonight, you must definitely call your 4 brothers back to celebrate. After that, we'll spread the news of you being able to cultivate. Let's see if anyone dares to call you trash in the future." "Grandpa, I think it's better not to tell anyone about this," Sima Yue advised. "What? I know that although you don't say it, you care a lot about what others think. In the past, I even saw you secretly hiding in the courtyard and crying. That's why I didn't force you to go to the academy." Sima Lai looked at Sima Yue in confusion. "I've lived for 14 years and have never been able to cultivate. If I suddenly say that I can cultivate, others will think that I'm just spouting nonsense. Furthermore, those people will constantly look for me to verify whether or not I can cultivate. That will bring me unnecessary trouble." Sima Lai heard Sima Yue's words and said, "But you also care a lot about others saying that you're trash. You're my granddaughter, why should you suffer such grievances?" "I did care a lot and was very sad before, but that was because I really couldn't cultivate. It wasn't because of what others said. Now that I can cultivate, I don't care what others say. Furthermore, whether or not I can cultivate is my own business. Even if others know about it, I won't be able to increase my strength. On the contrary, it might even bring danger to the family. Grandpa also has many strong opponents, right? The Nayland family has always been dissatisfied with us. If they know about my talent, they might have bad intentions," Sima Yue said. Sima Lai looked at Sima Yue with satisfaction. Ever since she was injured, she seemed to have changed a lot. She was no longer willful and was more sensible. She also thought about things more comprehensively than before. What you said makes sense. Then for the time being, we won't tell anyone about your cultivation. However, we still need to call your 4 brothers back to celebrate. We'll close the door and celebrate by ourselves." Sima Lai thought it through and regained his mood. "Then I'll go back to cultivate first. I'll wait for my brothers to come back at night before coming back." Sima Yue finished speaking and turned to leave. "Wait." Sima Lai called out to her. "What's the matter, Grandpa? Come with me," Sima Lai said as he turned around and walked to a corner of the study. He touched the wall and found a protruding spot. He pressed down heavily and the bookshelf beside him slowly moved aside, revealing a hole in the ground. A staircase extended downwards. He took out an illuminating pearl and looked at Sima Yue saying, "Let's go down." Sima Yue looked at Sima Lai's mysterious appearance and followed him down. She discovered that this was a place similar to a basement. The long passageway led to who knows where. "We're here." After walking for a few minutes, they finally reached their destination. Sima Yue looked around and saw that it was a simple stone room. Other than a stone table in the middle and a box on top, there was nothing else inside. Sima Lai came to the front of the stone table and said, "This is something your father left behind. He said that he would give it to you when you could cultivate. I'll give it to you now." Sima Yue heard Sima Lai's words and felt that it was strange. However, she couldn't tell what was strange. She saw Sima Lai's encouraging eyes and walked to the front of the stone table. She reached out and took the box. She wanted to open it but was stopped by Sima Lai. "Open it when you're alone." Sima Lai's eyes were very insistent. Sima Yue could only nod her head and prepare to open it when they returned. "Okay, let's go back," Sima Lai said. Sima Yue left Sima Lai's study and returned to her own courtyard. She sent Yunyu and Chunjian out and sat on the bed alone. She placed the box in front of her and stared at it. Sima Lai had just told her that Yunyu and Chunjian were trustworthy people. This was because they had sworn an oath to themselves that they would never betray her. Although Sima Lai had asked them to swear an oath, under the constraints of the rules, they still couldn't betray her. Otherwise they would be thrown into the abyss by the power of the oath. The power of the oath was also one of the most mysterious things in this world. Swearing an oath was like making a contract with the laws of heaven and earth. If one violated the contract, then it was the same as violating the contract. One would be forcefully thrown into the abyss and never be able to leave. Chapter 12. Forget it, since it was left behind by my father, I can't not open it. Sima Yue picked up the box and opened it with some force. Inside the box, there was a simple ring, a piece of craft paper and a black stone. She picked up the craft paper and opened it. It seemed to be a map of a place with many routes and the locations of houses drawn on it. Sima Yue couldn't find any clues on it and put it back into the box. However, she saw an envelope where the craft paper was placed. "What is this?" Sima Yue picked up the envelope and saw that it was addressed to my daughter. She opened the envelope and saw a thin piece of paper inside. She opened it and quickly read the contents of the letter. The expression on her face became serious. The content of the letter wasn't long. Sima Yu put down the letter after reading it and picked up the simple and unadorned ring. The letter said that this ring was a keepsake of the clan and was a very rare interspatial ring. If this was really a family heirloom, why didn't Sima Lai know about it? She always felt that her background wasn't like what she saw now. She put the ring down. She didn't have any spiritual energy and couldn't drip her blood on it. She ran her fingers across the craft paper and paused. She narrowed her eyes. Her father said that this was a map of a very important place and she couldn't let anyone know that it was with her. The craft paper looked a little old and it must have been there for a long time. However, she couldn't tell where the map was and there were no hints at all. It's just a piece of broken paper. My father, you should at least tell me where this map is. Otherwise, what's the use of it? Sima Yue shook her head and sighed. She didn't know why her father was being so mysterious. Finally, she picked up the black stone and looked at it carefully in her palm. She couldn't tell that it was an ancient artifact as described in the letter. It looks black like a weight. Is it really an ancient artifact? Sima Yue weighed it in her hand and said, My cheap dad said that this ancient artifact needs to choose its owner. Is it because we're not fated that I didn't notice your good points? Sima Yue put the stone back and kept the box, preparing to cultivate. As long as she became a spiritual knight, she would be able to drip a drop of blood on the spatial ring. At that time she would be able to see what was inside. She was very curious about the things inside the ring that her father had left behind. She touched the illusion ring on her finger and thought to herself that this spatial ring was really troublesome. It had to be cultivated before it could recognize its owner. How good would it be if it was like an illusion ring? For a day she didn't absorb the spiritual energy into her body. Instead, she spent a day sensing the spiritual energy. This time she took a closer look. She sensed that there were light spots of all colors, but some were more and some were less. Those light spots seemed to be able to sense Sima Yue. They kept flying around her as if they wanted to drill into her body. Before dinner, Sima Yue stopped meditating. She estimated that it was about time for her brothers to come back. Young master, fourth young master is here. He's waiting for you in the living room. Yunyu said outside the door. I got it. Tell him that I'll be there immediately. Sima Yue ordered Yunyu as she got down from the bed. Yes. Yunyu replied and left. Sima Yue placed the box under her pillow. She was in a hurry to leave and didn't notice that the box was glowing faintly. Fourth brother, why are you here? Sima Yue came to the living room and saw Sima Yulu who was drinking tea. Sima Yulu saw Sima Yue coming over and put down the teacup, saying, I'm here to call you over for dinner. You could have just asked the servant to inform me. Why did you have to come here personally? Sima Yue heard that he was here to call her over for dinner and didn't walk in anymore. She leaned against the door and said, Let's go over now. Sima Yulu stood up and followed her to the front yard, saying, I'm here to tell you something. What? Teacher Mu said that if you don't go to the academy tomorrow, he will get the principal to expel you. Even if the emperor pleads for you, you won't be able to enter the academy. Sima Yulu said. Teacher Mu? Which Teacher Mu? Sima Yue blinked her eyes and looked at Sima Yulu in confusion. Seeing Sima Yue's expression, Sima Yulu patted her head and said with a smile, It's your class teacher. Sima Yue thought of the class teacher. He was like the class teacher in her previous life. Besides teaching, he would also take care of other things in the class. Sima Yulu saw Sima Yue's silent expression and thought that she didn't want to go. He said, If you don't want to go, I'll tell Teacher Mu tomorrow. It's just that you won't be able to go to the academy in the future. No need, I'll go to school with you tomorrow. Sima Yue said while shaking her head. In the past, she couldn't cultivate, so she didn't like to stay in the academy. Now that she could cultivate, she found a lot to learn in these 2 days. She had planned to find some time to go and learn. Although tomorrow was a little rushed, it wasn't a big problem. As a result, during dinner, Sima Yue told Sima Lai about going to the academy. Sima Lai also felt that Sima Yue could cultivate now and it would be better if she went to the academy to learn, so he nodded in agreement. At this time, Sima Yuqi and the other 4 finally knew that Sima Yue could cultivate and they were all happy for her. After dinner, Sima Yue returned to her room and continued to meditate. However, this time she not only tried to sense the light spots, but also tried to guide them into her body. At the beginning, the light spots were a little resistant to her guidance. However, not long after, the first light spot entered her body and followed her meridians to her abdomen. Finally, it stopped at her abdomen. With the first one there was a second one. Then, one after another, the light spots drilled into her body and settled down in her body. While she was cultivating, the box that was placed under her pillow once again emitted a colorful light. Under the illumination of this light, more and more of those light spots gathered around Sima Yuyu and were finally absorbed into her body. Chapter 13. Sima Lai had prepared a wolf carriage for Sima Yuyu. In front of the carriage were 4 majestic storm wolves, each of which was a 5th-ranked low-spirit beast. Low-level spirit beasts were highly sought after by most people as contracted beasts. However, for Sima Yuyu they were the spirit beasts that pulled the carriage. That was why they attracted a lot of attention along the way. "Fourth bro, where's third bro?" Sima Yuyu asked curiously when she saw that only Sima Yulu and her were sitting in the huge carriage. Third bro and his roommates went on a mission today, so they left before the sun rose. Sima Yulu replied. Mission. Sima Yuyu looked at Sima Yulu suspiciously. He was obviously saying that he didn't know anything. Sima Yulu was originally reading a book, but he closed it and said, "The academy is not only a place to study theory, but also to give students some missions to increase their practical experience. Depending on your strength, the difficulty of the missions will also be different. Eldest bro and the others went out this time, so it will probably be a long time before they return." So it's like this. Sima Yuyu nodded. It seemed that life in the academy was not too boring. Alright, I forgot to tell you yesterday. Yesterday and today are the days of the academy's new student selection. If you're interested, you can go and take a look. However, I've already made an appointment with my teacher this morning, so I'm afraid I won't have time to accompany you. If you want to take a look, I can accompany you in the afternoon? Sima Yulu said. No need, you can go ahead if you have something to do. If I'm interested, I'll go and take a look myself. Sima Yuyu shook her head and refused. She knew that Sima Yulu was afraid that she would be bored or bullied in the academy, but she couldn't let her brother accompany her every day. She was already so old and should learn to be independent. Furthermore, the one living inside was a mature soul. Has really grown up. Sima Yulu looked at Sima Yuyu with admiration. Sweat. Sima Yuyu was speechless at Sima Yuli's words. He was only 3 years older than her, but he said it as if he was much older than her. In order not to be caught rolling her eyes, she pulled open the curtains to look at the scene outside. She found that the streets were bustling with people coming and going. Sima Yulu said that this was because the academy was recruiting students. Every time the academy was recruiting students, the capital would be especially lively. The beast carriage brought them all the way to the sect. Sima Yulu brought Sima Yuyu to the classroom and left only after confirming that she was all right. Sima Yuyu's appearance silenced the noisy classroom, followed by louder boos and some weird noises. Why would trash appear in the classroom? Haha, could it be that because he heard that there are a few handsome guys coming this time, he is preparing to pursue them again? I heard that the last time he went to take liberties with young Master Morongen, he was almost beaten to death by his followers. No wonder I haven't seen him loitering around the academy for so long. It turns out that he went back to recuperate. People like him should be beaten to death. He's just a useless piece of trash. If it weren't for his grandfather's protection, how could he be so arrogant? Sima Yue heard these words and snorted coldly in her heart, silently remembering them. She saw that there was an empty seat in the last row of the classroom. She walked over and sat down, then turned her head and looked out of the window. Actually, compared to the previous her, she was already pretty good. She didn't like to study because she couldn't cultivate at all. Naturally, she had no interest in cultivation. It was understandable that she liked handsome guys because she was a girl to begin with. It was just that this liking had turned into a love-struck fool, which was unacceptable. But even so, she didn't bully others because she came from an illustrious family. She also didn't act like a spoiled brat who brought his subordinates everywhere. Everyone discussed Sima Yoyue's enrollment for a while. Seeing that she didn't have any reaction, everyone slowly lost interest and changed the topic to the new students. However, there were some people who were more interested in her than anything else and spread the news of her enrollment. Very quickly, everyone knew that the number one trash who came to the academy on the first day had come to the academy again. In a pavilion by the lake in the academy, a few people were sitting together discussing Sima Yoyue's enrollment. Murong, is this trash here to pester you again? Someone said to Murong, who was sitting in the middle. This Murong was quite good looking. If he was in the modern era, he would be a celebrity. Wearing a white shirt, he looked extraordinary. Thinking about what they said, he couldn't help but frown. That's right, I think so too. Could it be that this trash saw that you didn't leave the academy so he came to find you? After being beaten up so badly, I thought that he would ask his family to take revenge. I didn't expect that after waiting for so long, there's still no news. The girl sitting beside Murong and was the one who had watched Sima Yue get beaten up. Hearing that Sima Yue had returned to the academy, she couldn't help but ask, "Murong, what if he pesters you again?" Murong stretched out his hand to hold the girl's hand and said, "Don't worry, I won't let him have the chance." Sima Yue sat in the classroom for a while before she was called to Teacher Mu's office. When she entered, she saw Teacher Mu and a young, elegant and handsome man sitting together drinking tea. He was wearing a white shirt that gave people a feeling that he could only be seen from afar but not touched. Seeing her enter, Teacher Mu's eyes revealed a look of disgust. However, he smiled and said, "Sima Yue, this is a new first-year student. He is Teacher Feng Zhixing." Sima Yue bowed to Feng Zhixing and called out, "Teacher Feng." Feng Zhixing turned around and looked at Sima Yue. There wasn't a trace of disgust or unhappiness on his face as he said, "You are Sima Yue? You have to study hard in the future. Otherwise, teacher will still punish you." Sima Yue was confused by Feng Zhixing's words. She looked at Feng Zhixing and Teacher Mu suspiciously. "Cough cough, it's like this. Because you have never been to school before, I thought that you wouldn't be able to catch up with the other students. Therefore I talked to the principal. Today is the freshman selection and you can study with the other freshmen. This is better for you. Therefore you will be Teacher Feng's student in the future." Teacher Mu explained. Sima Yue looked at Teacher Mu's considerate face. Although he tried his best to hide it, she could see the joy in his eyes. Chapter 14. Although Teacher Mu's actions made her unhappy, she felt that since she had never studied in the academy before, it would be good to learn with the new students. "This is the key to your room." Feng Zhixing threw a key to Sima Yue. "Key. I require all my students to stay in the academy. I know that your grandfather is the protector of the empire, but you have to stay in the academy. You can go out during normal times but you have to sleep in the dorm at night. When you are not out on missions you can go home for one night a week." Feng Zhixing explained. Although she didn't know the reason, Sima Yue still obediently agreed. "Alright, you can go back now. Tomorrow bring your things to the academy. We will officially start classes the day after tomorrow," Feng Zhixing said. Sima Yue bowed to the two of them and left. Since she didn't have to go to class now, she would go back and cultivate. But before she went back she had to tell Sima Yue. But she didn't expect to be stopped before she reached the senior class. "Sima Yue, stop right there." Sima Yue raised her head and saw the person in front of her. It was the person who beat her up that day. She remembered that many people had beaten her up that day but this person had hit her the hardest. Seeing him, it was as if she saw the scene of her predecessor being beaten to death. Her eyes darkened and she said coldly, "Move." The person who stopped her was the young master of the first family in the capital, Nailan Qi. The Nailan family was one of the more powerful families in Fengming. Their ancestor was about to reach the rank of spirit paragon, so they didn't care much about the Sima family. After all, Sima Lai was powerful but he was only one person. But the Nailan family had a group of powerful people. The confrontation between Nailan Qi and Sima Yue quickly attracted the attention of the surrounding people. Although they didn't dare to provoke Sima Yue, they liked to watch the show. They didn't want to be blamed for anything. Nailan Qi saw that there were so many people watching and mocked. "Sima Yue, are you looking for Murong again? You want to pester him again? Was it not enough to beat you up last time? I say, why are you so shameless? You're clearly a man, yet you're still clinging on to Rongan. You're really shameless." Nailan Qi's words made the onlookers burst into laughter. They all looked at Sima Yue and laughed at her. Sima Yue looked at Nailan Qi with anger in her eyes. Nailan Qi was not intimidated by Sima Yue's stare. He asked someone to bring him a stool and stepped on it, saying, "If you want to go over today you can. Here, crawl through here and I won't stop you." As he spoke he pointed at his crotch. Sima Yue looked at Nailan Qi and did not say anything. She just stood there. If it was someone from the previous life, they would know that she was furious right now. "What? You don't want to climb?" Did he not want to or did he not dare to? So cowardly, this so-called General Sima must be a coward as well. Ah. Nailan Qi looked at Sima Yue intending to make fun of her. However, he did not expect that she would suddenly run up to him. With one hand she tugged on his shirt and pulled it downwards. She lifted her leg and kicked his lower body viciously, causing him to cry out in pain as he fell to the ground. Everyone had expected that Sima Yue would suddenly counterattack. Furthermore, Nobody knew how she had managed to get to Nalanqi's side. By the time they had reacted, Nalanqi had already been beaten to the ground. He initially thought that Sima Yu would end things here, but instead she knelt on one knee on Nalanqi's body and pulled his right hand behind his back. He only heard a kacha sound, followed by a shrill scream that resounded throughout the sect. I don't have time to play with you today. Don't appear in front of me again. Otherwise, I'll beat you up every time I see you. Sima Yue calmly stood up from Nalanqi's body and kicked him twice before turning to leave. Everyone was stunned by Sima Yue's actions. Was this the rumored cowardly Sima Yue who only knew how to act like a love-struck fool? The commotion in front of the senior class quickly spread throughout the school. No one dared to believe their ears. If those people did not repeatedly promise that it was absolutely true, no one would have believed it. In a tall building not far away, two people were watching the commotion. One of them was Feng Zhixing, whom Sima Yue had seen before. What a powerful little kitten, Feng Zhixing said with a smile when he saw Sima Yue's actions. However, his heart tightened. That kick just now was really ruthless. Why did you agree to let her go to your class? The person beside Feng Zhixing asked. Intuition. Feng Zhixing said, look, isn't she different from the rumors? That speed when she attacked TSK, I'm very curious about her. Also, when she saw me just now, she didn't act like a love-struck fool at all. Up to you. Anyway, since I found you, I'll leave everything to you to deal with. That person said. Principal, you trust me that much? Aren't you afraid that I'll lead those kids astray? Feng Zhixing looked at that person meaningfully. What's there to be afraid of? Do you think I don't know you? The principal left the window and returned to his seat. Just now, he was discussing something with Feng Zhixing and was called over to see the scene of Sima Yue beating someone up. Aha, if you're not afraid, then I'm not afraid either. I'll go and see which unlucky kids will fall into my hands. Feng Zhixing said. Your class is the most talented group of kids this time. You have to take it easy. I'll do my best. I'll make sure they have an unforgettable time here. Feng Zhixing said and left the principal's office. In front of the classroom, Sima Yue kicked Nalanqi twice and went to look for Sima Yulu. Before she reached the classroom, she saw Sima Yulu rushing out of the classroom. He didn't even see Sima Yue in front of him. Fourth brother, where are you going? Sima Yue quickly caught him. What are you doing here? Sima Yulu said in surprise when he saw Sima Yue. I came to look for you. Sima Yue replied with a smile. You ran so fast just now. Where were you going? I heard that you had a conflict with Nalanqi in front and even fought. I wanted to go and see if you were hurt. Sima Yulu said. Sima Yue smiled happily, saying, Fourth brother, don't worry. I'm not hurt. I gave Nalanqi a good beating. Really? Of course. Look, aren't I here? Sima Yue said. That's good. Sima Yulu sighed in relief, asking, What are you doing here? Chapter 15. Feng Zhixing? I think I've heard them talk about it before. They said that he's a very powerful teacher. Sima Yulu said. Since you've decided, then let's do it. Let me send you back. No need, I can go back by myself. I'm not a child anymore. Then I'm leaving. Sima Yue waved at him after speaking and turned to leave. Sima Yulu looked at his back and felt that his younger brother had become a lot more sensible after he had been beaten up. Now that he was able to cultivate, he might be able to catch up to him soon. If he wanted to protect her, he had to work harder. Sima Yue wasn't familiar with the academy. She followed the road signs and arrived at the entrance of the academy. Only when she saw so many people at the entrance did she remember that it was the second day of the academy's examination. Next, Ouyang Fei, the examiner, shouted at the team. At this time, a man in front of the group came forward. According to the teacher's request, he put his hand on a crystal ball. Sima Yue looked at it. When Ouyang Fei injected spiritual power into the ball, the crystal ball emitted red and green light. Heavens, it's actually fire and wood dual elemental. This time there was actually a dual elemental spirit master. This is great. Ah. Seeing the crystal ball's reaction, the testing teacher laughed and said, Quickly go and tell the principal that we found 2 spirit masters this time. Soon someone came over. Sima Yue remembered that it was the director of the teaching office. Where is the dual elemental spirit master? The dean asked excitedly as soon as he arrived. When he saw the teacher pointing at Ouyang Fei, he went up to him with a smile and pulled him into the academy. Sima Yue pursed her lips. This director was too snobbish. In the past, when she saw that he was a good-for-nothing, she would often look down her nose at him. Now that she saw a genius, her face was about to turn into a chrysanthemum. The teacher quickly called for the next person. She looked at a few people and realized that the so-called test was just a test with a crystal ball. The examinee would inject spiritual energy into the crystal ball and be able to test their attributes. The darker the color of the crystal ball, the higher the talent. If he were to encounter a dual elemental spirit master like Ouyang Fei, it would be even worse. However, she heard from the people around her that there were no other dual elemental spiritualists apart from him. Sima Yue looked at it for a while and felt that there was nothing new about it. Just as she was about to leave, she heard an exclamation behind her. Heavens, he's actually a tri-elemental spirit master. It's really 3 elements. We actually saw a tri-elemental soul master. This time the crowd's shouts were even louder than before. Their throats were almost broken from all the shouting. A tri-elemental spirit master. It had been a few hundred years since one had appeared in the academy. In the past there were at most 2 elemental spirit masters. The examiner was about to go crazy. Not only was there a 2-element genius this year, but there was also a 3-element genius. He couldn't help but pinch himself to make sure that this was real. Sima Yu turned around and saw a lonely figure who was not affected by this fiery scene. She stood indifferently in front of the crystal ball and looked at the people who were cheering because of her, but she was like an outsider. There was no pride on her face, no complacency. There was only endless loneliness and a trace of well-hidden hatred. As if she felt Sima Yue sizing her up, she turned her head and looked over. She originally thought that she would see the same crazy eyes, but she didn't expect to see a pair of clear and bright eyes. The two of them stared at each other for almost half a minute. Finally, that person turned around and asked the examiner, "Excuse me, did I pass? Can I go in now?" Of course you passed. However, you can't go in now. The academy has other arrangements for a multi-elemental spirit master like you. You have to wait here for a while. A teacher will come and pick you up soon," the examiner said. That person replied calmly. When she turned around to look at Sima Yue, she found that she had already left and only her back view was left. Sima Yue returned to the general's residence. Originally, she wanted to look for Sima Lai directly. However, the housekeeper told her that Sima Lai had gone to the palace. She returned to her own courtyard and closed herself in her room to flip through the books. After reading one of them, she began to cultivate. Last night, she felt that she had already entered the door. If she worked harder, she believed that she would become a true spirit master soon. When that time came, she would be able to bind the clan ring with her blood. It would be more convenient for her to go out in the future with a spatial ring. She had already instructed Yunyu and Chun Jian not to disturb her if there wasn't anything important. She had also locked the door from the inside so she didn't have to worry about anyone interrupting her cultivation. First, she entered the meditation stage. Now, she only needed to meditate for a while to be able to sense the spiritual energy around her. The book that she was looking at just now was a book that she had unintentionally taken out. It just so happened that it talked about how to cultivate a multi-elemental spirit master. Sima Yue focused all her attention on the red light spots. She slowly guided them into her body and gathered them at her lower abdomen. Although the other light spots were active around her, they were not able to enter her body like the red light spots. At the same time, the box at the side emitted a gentle light, helping her to cultivate faster. When Sima Lai returned, he heard from the housekeeper that Sima Yue was looking for him. Thus he went to her courtyard. The moment he entered, he felt the fluctuations of cultivation and knew that Sima Yue was cultivating. He instructed Yunyu not to let anyone disturb her and left. It seemed that what she said was true. She could really cultivate. Sima Yue had been cultivating in her room. Perhaps she was too engrossed in her cultivation. She only woke up 2 days later. Boom! Sima Yue felt as if a layer of barrier in her body had been broken. Her body felt refreshed and a warm current flowed through her meridians to her limbs and bones. After circulating one round, it returned to her abdomen. Sima Yue opened her eyes happily. She saw that her body was enveloped by a ray of light and a small star was sparkling in the light. I am now a spiritual knight. Haha, it seems that I can really cultivate after detoxifying my body. This time, the box did not disappear after Sima Yue finished her cultivation like the previous 2 times. Instead, it continued to shine under the light of Sima Yue's advancement. When she regained her senses from the excitement of her advancement, she realized that something was wrong. She picked up the box. The light of advancement disappeared along with the gentle light that the box emitted. She opened the box doubtfully and looked at the 3 items that were normal. There is nothing strange about it? What was the source of the light just now? Chapter 16. Is this the inside of the spatial ring? Sima Yue looked curiously at the space that looked like a room and said excitedly, next time when I go out with this, everything can be stored inside. How convenient would that be? Her consciousness swam through the rooms one by one, and she roughly understood the situation inside. Just as she retracted her consciousness, she heard a voice in her head. Ha ha, this young master has finally woken up. Sima Yue was shocked by the voice and asked subconsciously, who is it? The other party said a syllable suspiciously and then went silent. Not long after, it exclaimed again, you actually don't remember me. Sima Yue looked around the room and did not see anything. Where did the voice come from? Woo, you actually forgot about this young master. The voice whimpered and complained. Who are you? I am Little Roar. You really don't remember me? The pitiful voice sounded, but it confused Sima Yue. Little monkey? Cough cough, you are a monkey? Sima Yue asked. You are the monkey. You were the one who gave me this name. Little Roar cried. Just as Sima Yue was puzzled, a figure came out from her body and floated in front of her. So it's not a monkey, it's a rabbit. Sima Yue said after seeing its appearance clearly. Rabbit? How can I be a rabbit? I am Roar, the ancient beast god Roar. Little Roar roared at Sima Yue. Sima Yue touched her nose and said, Roar? Little Roar? You remember me, right? Little Roar asked excitedly. No. Then how do you know that I am Little Roar? Little Roar said. Didn't you just say that you are Little Roar? Sima Yue looked at Little Roar with disdain. This animal's intelligence was still not comparable to a human's. Did I say that? Sweat. Sima Yue was speechless at the rabbit that came out of her body. She asked, why are you in my body? What did you mean when you said you were awake? I have a contract with you, so of course I'm in your body. Little Roar said. Contract? That's right, I have a soul contract with you. Although you died before, your soul is still here, so I followed you here. Little Roar replied. Then why didn't you come out earlier? Sima Yue asked. Didn't I tell you? I'm sleeping. Little Roar said, you were injured, so I was injured as well. I had been in a deep sleep to recuperate, but I didn't expect that when I woke up again, you wouldn't remember me. Woo dash, as Little Roar spoke, he began to cry. His tears fell onto Sima Yue's body, causing her to feel a burst of comfort. Your tears are so magical, Sima Yue said. I'm an auspicious beast, so of course I'll make you feel comfortable. Little Roar said. So it's like this. Sima Yue looked at Little Roar and said, what do you mean when you said you were injured? Also, how did I form a contract with you? I've never even seen you before. Woo you're too hateful. I don't want to like you anymore. How can you forget about the cute Little Roar? Luckily I established a soul contract with you, otherwise I wouldn't have been able to find you. Woo, but you, how can you forget Little Roar? Little Roar said sadly. Seeing Little Roar's appearance, Sima Yue felt a burst of sadness in her heart, as if she was affected by his feelings. She hugged Little Roar and gently stroked his fur, saying, I'm sorry, I really don't remember. But I can still feel the connection between us. When you're sad, I'm sad too. Little Roar stretched out his short front legs and rubbed his face, saying, could it be that your soul was injured, causing you to forget about your past life? I'll go take a look. After Little Roar finished speaking, he disappeared from Sima Yue's embrace and quickly reappeared. But this time he appeared a little tired. He glanced at Sima Yue and said, your memories are actually gone. No wonder you don't remember me. Memories? What memories? Sima Yue raised Little Roar in front of her and asked. It's useless even if I tell you. You'll have to find those memories yourself. Little Roar said. These few days I also feel that I'm missing a part of my memories. Sometimes I feel empty in my heart as if I've forgotten something very important. But if it's very important, why don't I have any recollection of it? Sima Yue let go of Little Roar and used both her hands to support her head as she said painfully. You don't be anxious. You won't be able to find your memories like this. Little Roar said. Sima Yue looked at Little Roar and asked, Little Roar, do you have a way? Little Roar scratched his head with his front legs and finally said, I think it's because your soul was injured that you can't remember what happened in the past. Wait until your soul slowly recovers. You should be able to remember what happened in the past. But how do I recover my soul? Eat some things that are beneficial to your soul. Then you can cultivate. Wait until you reach a certain realm, then you'll be able to recover your soul. Little Roar said. Suddenly she saw the stone in the box and cried out. She pointed at the stone and said, That's the spirit pearl? Sima Yue saw Little Roar's intense reaction and asked, You know this thing? Of course I know. Little Roar's eyes lit up as he flew in front of the spirit pearl. He stretched out his 2 short legs and touched it, almost causing his saliva to flow out. My cheap father said that this is a divine weapon passed down from ancient times. However, it needs to be fated for it to recognize an owner. Sima Yue said. Little Roar held onto the spirit pearl and nodded his head continuously, saying, Yes, yes. It's a pity that no one knows what use this pearl has. Yu, quickly try and see if you can get it to recognize you as its owner. I heard that this is a supreme divine weapon. If you can get it, it'll definitely be good. Really? Sima Yue looked at Little Roar suspiciously. Yes, come. Quickly try it. Little Roar carried the spirit pearl in front of Sima Yue and urged her. Sima Yue saw Little Roar's enthusiastic look and took the spirit pearl, saying, Then I'll try. And then, Little Roar flew to Sima Yue's shoulder and said, Yu, hurry up. However, Sima Yue did not know how to recognize an owner. Just as she was thinking whether or not she had to carry out some sort of ceremony, Little Roar came over and pulled open the wound on her finger. As there was not much blood, he directly placed her finger on top of the spirit pearl. At first, the spirit pearl did not have any reaction. The blood did not even enter it. Just as she was about to give up, the blood was instantly sucked in. Just as she thought that she had succeeded and wanted to retract her finger, she realized that she could not move. Not only that, Sima Yue felt as if her finger had been bitten. A piercing pain assaulted her. Following that, she could feel her own blood flowing out from her finger. Very quickly, she felt dizzy from the excessive blood loss. Following that, her vision turned black and she fell onto the bed. Chapter 17. Yue, today is a disaster for our Shiman clan. They have been planning this for a long time. You cannot be blamed for this matter. Shiman Yue, how does it feel to see your loved ones die in front of you? Ah. Yue, you have to live well. Yu, no matter where you go, Little Roar will follow you. Shiman Yue, go and die. Sima Yue stood in the darkness, listening to the alternating gentle and murderous voice. Her heart was in pain as if it was being torn apart. She tried her best to figure out where the voice was coming from, wanting to see clearly who was speaking, but no matter how hard she tried, her eyes seemed to be covered by something, unable to open them. Sima Yue fiercely opened her eyes, and the feeling of being unable to open her eyes disappeared along with the dream. She gasped for air, and her whole body was wet as if she had just been fished out from the water. Yu, you're awake. Woo, you're finally awake. You scared Little Roar to death. Before Sima Yue could recover, Little Roar, who was floating at the side, suddenly rushed into her embrace, crying loudly. Sima Yue's scattered thoughts were gathered by Little Roar's crying. She hugged Little Roar and stroked his fur, saying, Don't cry, I'm fine, aren't I? Woo, it's all Little Roar's fault. If I didn't make you drip blood to recognize me as your master, you wouldn't have fainted. Little Roar blamed himself. Sima Yue hugged Little Roar and kissed his little forehead, saying, Little Roar did it for my own good, didn't you? Although the dream just now was a little blurry, her feelings towards Little Roar seemed to have cleared up, and she suddenly felt much closer to him. That feeling was not only due to the contract, but also as if he had accompanied her for a long time, and there was a different kind of friendship between them. She hugged Little Roar and stood up, looking at the unfamiliar environment. There were mountains, rivers, and houses, as if it was a world of its own. Unfortunately, it was cold and desolate and there was no one. Where are we? Sima Yue looked around and asked in surprise when she realized that they were not near the capital city. You fainted just now. After that, a ray of light brought us here. I don't know where this is either. Little Roar said. This is inside the Soul Pearl. A childlike voice rang out. In the Soul Pearl? Who are you? Sima Yue looked around but did not find any humans or animals nearby. A figure slowly appeared in front of Sima Yue. The figure was as small as a 3-year-old child. Her hair was tied up in 2 buns and she wore a bright red doo-doo. She looked at the human and beast and said, I am the weapon spirit of the Soul Pearl. This is the world inside the Soul Pearl? The world inside the Soul Pearl? Seeing the doubt in Sima Yue and Little Roar's eyes, the spirit of the Spirit Pearl nodded and said, The Spirit Pearl has its own world, just like the outside world. No, this is much better than the outside world. Sima Yue nodded in agreement. This place was indeed much better than the outside world. Even a newbie like her could feel the dense spiritual chi here even without meditation. Clearly, this place was much better than the outside world. Moreover, the mountains and rivers here were filled with spiritual chi. There were also many medicinal herbs planted in the ground. Where did these herbs come from? Sima Yue asked as she walked into the field and looked at the thick and scary herbs. These were all left behind by the previous owner. These herbs are already hundreds of thousands of years old. The artifact spirit replied, as for those that can't be grown for too long, I will also regularly clear them out. Previous owner? Yes, that was something that happened hundreds of thousands of years ago. It's been so long that I don't even remember, the artifact spirit said, looking off into the distance. There was a deep sense of loneliness in his eyes. Perhaps it was because of the contract. Sima Yue looked at his lonely face and subconsciously walked over. She hugged him in her arms and rested her face on his head, saying, "In the future we will accompany you. You won't be lonely anymore." The artifact spirit's small body trembled and stiffened in her arms. Feeling the warmth of her embrace, he slowly relaxed and softly replied, "N." Sima Yue patted the artifact spirit and carried him towards the house, saying, "Let's go to other places to take a look." Okay. Little Roar stood on Sima Yue's shoulder and said excitedly. He said that he was very curious about this place. Sima Yue walked around the house and saw many things left behind by the previous owners. In the study room that was even bigger than the Sima family's library, there were many ancient books. Many of them were lost in the present. The artifact spirit said that these books were slowly accumulated from the first owner and were the essence of each era. Looking at these books, Sima Yue was very excited for a long time. The things in the ancient era were said to be much more powerful than the things in the present world. However, due to various reasons, many things had been lost. According to the artifact spirit, the previous owners had all kinds of occupations. Therefore, the books here were very comprehensive. There were books on alchemy, weapon refining, and beast taming. Hearing this, Sima Yue's mouth almost fell to her ears. This was simply a huge treasure trove. However, what made her the most excited was what the artifact spirit said at the end. Your soul is somewhat incomplete. Previously, it should have suffered quite a bit of damage. The spirit pearl can help you recover your soul. Of course, it can also help you cultivate. It can also help me cultivate, Sima Yue said in surprise. Try to sense your abdomen. Sima Yue did as she was told. Currently, she was still unable to see within herself. However, she could feel that her abdomen was no longer just a ball of red spiritual energy. Instead, there was something like a pool. You are still unable to see within yourself. Otherwise, you would be able to see that there is something like a pool in your abdomen. That is prepared by the spirit pearl for your cultivation. The spiritual energy that you absorb will be guided into the pool. Moreover, it will automatically classify the spiritual energy that you absorb. Even if I tell you now, you won't be able to feel it clearly. You will know when you can see inside. The artifact spirit said. That is to say, when I cultivate, I don't need to differentiate the spiritual energy. I can directly absorb spiritual energy of different attributes into my body. The spirit pearl will automatically separate them for me? Sima Yue couldn't believe her ears. If that was really the case, then wouldn't it be the same as getting a hack in a game? Yes, the artifact spirit said calmly. However, its words made Sima Yue lose her composure. She hugged the artifact spirit and gave it a big kiss on the cheek. Chapter 18. When she returned to her room, she remembered that she had to go to the academy. She called Yunyu and the rest over and found out that 4 days had passed. She was so scared that she hurriedly stuffed everything into her interspatial ring and ran out. Yunyu, when young master was packing, he used an interspatial ring, right? Chun Jian said blankly. Yunyu was also scared by Sima Yue and nodded blankly. I think so. Then young master can cultivate. Yes. Just before young master left, he told us to stay at home and cultivate. After that, the two of them looked at each other and asked suspiciously, that person, is he really our young master? Maybe, he is. Sima Yue went to inform Sima Lai and sat on the beast carriage to rush to the academy. Thinking that she was late by so many days, she wondered if Feng Zhixing would chase her back. In the capital academy in the first year's class A, Feng Zhixing came to the classroom. Seeing the empty seat at the back of the classroom, his eyes flashed as he said, 2 days ago, you all already had a basic understanding of our academy. Those who are able to enter our class already have spiritual energy, so I won't repeat some simple things to you. Now, let us learn how to quickly draw spiritual energy into the body. After a day of classes, the new students all returned to their own courtyards. The students in the new Class A were the ones with the best talents during the selection. Many of them became spiritual knights early on. As the top students, their treatment was naturally different. For example, other people lived in big dormitories, but the new Class A students lived in separate courtyards of 5 people. Although the courtyard wasn't big, it was well equipped. Other than a room for 5 people, there was also a kitchen, a bathroom, and a small garden. At the entrance of a courtyard, Bei Gong Tang was about to open the door when she realized that the key had already been unlocked. Bei Gong Tang, why do you always leave so quickly after school? Wouldn't it be better if we all came back together? Bei Gong Tang turned around and saw that it was her roommate Fatty Chu who had been living with her for 3 days. Behind him was the cold-faced Ouyang Fei and the gentle as jade Wei Ziqi. Fatty Chu's name was Chu Li. Because he was fat, on the first day everyone got to know each other, he joked that everyone could call him Fatty Chu. It's not you guys? Bei Gong Tang looked at Fatty Chu and the other 2 and frowned slightly. What's wrong? Ouyang Fei sensed that something was wrong and asked. Bei Gong Tang stood to the side and let everyone see the unlocked door, saying, I didn't do it. Oh, so you're saying that our other roommate has come? Wei Ziqi walked forward and pushed open the courtyard door, saying, I'm really curious as to who it could be. Wei Ziqi entered and the others followed him into the courtyard. As expected, a sound came from the second room on the right. In the house, Sima Yue was wiping the table and chairs with a cloth. Little Roar was lying on the table that had just been wiped clean. He complained, this house is really small and there's only 1 room for each person. It's a far cry from your old house. Actually, it's not bad. Downstairs is the study area and upstairs is the bedroom. How nice. Furthermore, it's fine as long as there's a place to stay. What's the point of having such a big house? Sima Yue stretched out her hand and poked Little Roar's head. The house here had 2 floors. It was just that there was only 1 room on each floor. Little Roar's body fell to one side and flipped over on the table, saying, you should quickly recover your strength. Your soul is incomplete and my strength has been greatly reduced. I'm so weak now. This matter can't be rushed. Sima Yue said, anyway, you're not young anymore. Waiting a few hundred years won't make a difference. Sigh, my heart is stifled. Little Roar looked up at the sky. Oh right, remember. You must never reveal your identity in front of others. You're just a normal little rabbit. Sima Yue instructed. I know. You've already told me so many times not to reveal my identity. I won't cause you any trouble. Little Roar said. It's good that you know. Sima Yue then continued to clean the house. Cough cough dash, 2 coughs came from outside the door. Sima Yue turned around and saw 4 people standing at the door. How could it be you? Fatty Chu looked at Sima Yue and said in shock. You know our new roommate? Wei Ziqi asked. I do. Fatty Chu looked at Sima Yue with a little fear, as if she would pounce on him at any moment. Fatty Chu's family was from the capital. Towards Sima Yue, this famous person he naturally knew, so he also knew that the general's 5th young master was gay. You guys are my new roommates? Sima Yue smiled at them. Seeing Fatty Chu's expression, her face was full of black lines, saying, Fatty Chu, what are you afraid of? I'm not interested in you. Not interested? What kind of situation was this? Hello, I'm Wei Ziqi. I live in the room on your left. Wei Ziqi smiled at Sima Yue and introduced himself. Ouyang Fei, the first room in the west. Ouyang Fei said simply. Bei Gong Tang, your left. Bei Gong Tang said. I know you guys. I saw it during the academy's freshman test. Ouyang Fei is a dual spirit master. Bei Gong Tang, you're a triple spirit master. Sima Yue said. She did not think that her roommates would be the ones with the best innate talents in this test. Why did Feng Zhixing arrange for a trash to stay here? You're in the second room in the west. You don't have to say anything. Sima Yue looked at Fatty Chu and felt a sense of helplessness. We've already introduced ourselves. You haven't said who you are. Wei Ziqi said. I'm Sima Yue. Sima Yue replied. You're Sima Yue? Didn't you say that Sima Yue is? Wei Ziqi looked at her in shock, unable to change his expression. Even Ouyang Fei's expression was a little strange. Sima Yue, Great General Sima Lai's 5th grandson. Dongqin Kingdom's #1 trash, lustful. Bei Gong Tang looked at Sima Yue and mercilessly revealed the rumors about Sima Yue. I've met you. I'm going back to my room. After she finished speaking, she turned around and went to the room next door. What a cold girl. She was clearly a great beauty, but now she had become a cold beauty. When she thought about how she had seen her lonely body during the test, Sima Yu felt that she was hiding something that no one knew about. I'm going back too. Ouyang Fei said and left. Cough cough that, welcome our new roommate. Wei Ziqi laughed awkwardly and said, the teacher taught me a lot of knowledge today. I'm going back to revise. Goodbye. Sima Yue looked at Wei Ziqi's fleeing appearance and rubbed her nose. Wasn't he just a little handsome? Did he have to have such a big reaction? Was she really that scary? Cough cough that, I'm going back to my room to cultivate. Fatty Chu said and prepared to slip away. Fatty Chu, stop right there. Sima Yue grabbed Fatty Chu's collar and pulled him back. Chapter 19. Hearing Sima Yue's words, Fatty Chu was relieved. The frightened expression on his face disappeared and changed into a silly smile, asking, Fifth young master, why did you stop me? Sima Yue pulled Fatty Chu into the house and closed the door, saying, Fatty Chu, let me ask you. Do you know the situation of those 3 people? Are you familiar with them? Not familiar. Fatty Chu shook his head and said, Bei Gong Tang is a person of few words and likes to be alone. Other than her name, she has never told anyone about herself. Sima Yue touched her chin and said, Yeah, she looks cold and doesn't seem like someone who likes to interact with others. What about Ouyang Fei? Ouyang Fei is about the same. Other than his name and him being a dual spirit master, we don't know anything about his family or his hometown. Fatty Chu said. Damn, they're all so mysterious. Sima Yue ridiculed, Then what about Wei Ziqi? He looks like he's easy to talk to. Fifth young master, I advise you not to have any ideas about him, even though he's quite good looking. Fatty Chu saw Sima Yue's expression and hurriedly advised. What? Sima Yue asked subconsciously. She only reacted after she asked and slapped Fatty Chu's shoulder. When did I say that I wanted to have any ideas about him? Your eyes were shining like that time when you saw Morongan. Fatty Chu looked at Sima Yue with slight disdain. Cough cough, the past is the past. Now that this young master's sexual orientation has changed, I'm not interested in men. Sima Yue put her right hand to her mouth and coughed twice, saying, Don't bother about this. Tell me, why can't I have any ideas about Wei Ziqi? Because he's from a beast tamer clan. The Wei clan is the northern forest city's largest beast tamer clan and has a very high position in the Dongqin kingdom. Although your grandfather is the guardian general, he cannot easily go against a beast tamer clan. Furthermore, it is said that he is the Wei clan's youngest and most talented beast tamer clan. His position in the clan can be imagined. Fatty Chu replied. A member of a beast tamer clan. Sima Yue let go of Fatty Chu and sat down on a chair, asking, Then what is his spiritual energy? It's the rarely seen ice and wood attributes. Fatty Chu replied. Ice element? Aren't there only 5 types of spiritual energy? Ice, wood, water, fire, and earth? Sima Yue asked. That's the spiritual energy of an ordinary person. Fatty Chu knew that Sima Yue was a good-for-nothing in the past, so it was understandable that she did not understand this. He patiently explained it to her. Other than the 5 basic elements, there are a few rarer elements such as ice, wind, and lightning. It was just that these 3 types were too rare, so not many people knew about them. It said that there are only 1 or 2 out of 10,000 spirit masters with special elements. So rare. Sima Yue was astonished. Yes, and I've also heard that the attack power of these special elements is very strong. Fatty Chu said with a face full of envy. You're so envious. As long as you work hard, you can also become very strong. Sima Yue said. Hee, that's true. Fatty Chu rubbed the back of his head, feeling a little embarrassed. I already know about the other 3. Now let's talk about you. What is your element? Sima Yue looked at Fatty Chu and asked. I'm a dual element fire and earth. Fatty Chu replied. Dual element fire and earth? Good fellow, I didn't see it before. Sima Yue looked at Fatty Chu and said. Fatty Chu really wanted to roll his eyes at her. In the past, she only cared about chasing after Morongan. How would she have the energy to pay attention to a fatty from a second-rate power like him? But didn't they say that there are very few multi-element spirit masters? Why are there so many of them in this courtyard? Sima Yue asked suspiciously. Yes, I've heard that there weren't any multi-element spirit masters in the past few years. But this year there were 4 of them, and one of them even had 3 elements. What's even more coincidental was that the 4 of us were tested together. Ouyang Fei was the first, Bei Gongtang was the second, Wei Ziqi was the third, and I was the fourth. You don't know how shocked the testing teacher was at that time. Fatty Chu said with a smile. He realized that as long as Sima Yue didn't go crazy, chatting with her was pretty good. When Ouyang Fei and Bei Gongtang were tested, she happened to see them at the entrance of the academy. But after seeing Bei Gongtang she left. She didn't think that Wei Ziqi and Fatty Chu would be behind her. When he saw Ouyang Fei and Bei Gongtang, the testing teacher was so happy that he almost went crazy. Adding on the two multi-element geniuses behind them, Sima Yue could already imagine his expression at that time. If he knew that she was a multi-element spirit master, she wondered if he would be scared to death. But fifth young master, how did you get into Class A? Fatty Chu asked suspiciously. What Class A? Sima Yue didn't understand. Our class. Fatty Chu said, our class is the best class among the new students. The students in our class are the ones with the best talent in this test. You don't know? I don't know. Sima Yue shook her head, saying, I was brought in by Feng Zhixing. He gave me the key to this place and then I came in. Could it be because her grandfather was the protector of the country? So he treated her differently? Fatty Chu couldn't help but think. Since the teacher gave you the key, then you are a member of our class. Fatty Chu said, but you have to be mentally prepared. The people in our class are usually very talented and are the apple of their eye. Some of them will inevitably be a little arrogant. Your reputation of not being able to cultivate is too well known, so some people might not like it and cause trouble for you. Hee hee, thank you for your reminder. Sima Yue laughed. She didn't think that this fatty's heart was so good. You're welcome. When Fatty Chu heard Sima Yue say thank you, he felt that it was unreal. In the past it was good enough that she didn't bully them. Why would she be so polite? But your grandfather is the protector of the country, so most people wouldn't dare to say anything. But you have to be careful of those from the big families. Okay, I know. Sima Yue nodded. Then I'll go back and cultivate. Fatty Chu stood up and said, Go. Thank you for telling me so much. I'll prepare some good food to reward you later. Sima Yue said as she patted Fatty Chu's shoulder. Cough, there's no need. I'm leaving. When Fatty Chu heard that Sima Yue wanted to prepare food for him, he was so scared that he immediately ran away. It was rumored that the things that the fifth young master of the general's residence made could poison a spirit beast to death. He hadn't lived long enough and didn't want to die young. Little Roar opened his eyes and said, How was it? I did well just now, right? I didn't even say a single word. Not bad, that's how it will be in the future. Sima Yue praised. Chapter 20. What's wrong? You really know how to cook? Fatty Chu said. Yes. Do you want to try it and see if it will poison you? Sima Yue said. The school's morning classes were rather late and only started around 9 in the morning. She woke up before 6 in the morning and cultivated for a while before waking up to make breakfast. She was a foodie through and through. In the past, other than when she was out on a mission, she could not skip a single meal. Now that she was here, she could not skip a meal. While she was cooking, she thought of the other people living in the same courtyard. If there were no accidents, they would be living together for a few years. Thus, she made a little more food and added in their portions. Fatty Chu came to the table and sat down. Looking at the food on the table, he subconsciously asked, This isn't the food from the restaurant, right? Sima Yue felt as if 3 black lines had appeared on her forehead. This person did not believe her at all. If you don't want to eat, I won't force you. Sima Yue said as she took the food out of the pot. Cough, of course I want to eat. Fatty Chu saw that the little rabbit on the table was eating so happily and thought that it would definitely not kill anyone. Furthermore, it smelled so good that it must be delicious. At this time, another figure appeared at the door. Seeing the table full of food, he said in surprise, Aya, we don't have to eat in the school's canteen today. It smells so good. Sima Yue looked at a certain handsome guy who came uninvited and sat at the dining table quite consciously. She thought of how he ran away yesterday and said faintly, Aren't you afraid of being eaten today? Wei Ziqi's hand froze. Then he picked up the food and placed it in his bowl, saying, I'm afraid, but I'll continue to be afraid after I finish eating. This is your pet? Wei Ziqi looked at Little Roar and asked. Hearing that he was a pet, Little Roar unhappily glared at Wei Ziqi. He was a divine roar, an ancient divine beast all right. Actually, it was no wonder that Go Chess called it a pet. She could only blame Sima Yue for being too famous. Almost the entire continent knew her name. People who couldn't cultivate couldn't contract spiritual beasts. Besides, it looked cute just like other cute pets. That was why it was Sima Yue's pet. Sima Yue placed the last dish on the table and said, "Yes, I spent a lot of money to buy it." Little Roar, who was full, rolled his eyes at Sima Yue. He jumped down from the table and went to the courtyard to digest his food. What did she mean by bought? She had obviously tricked it into forming a contract with her. What a liar. Seeing Little Roar's human-like expression, Wei Ziqi doubted his own words. Was it really just a pet? Let's start eating. Fatty Chu waited for Sima Yue to sit down before saying, "What are we eating? Aren't the other two not here yet?" Sima Yue asked. "I don't know where the two of them went in the morning. Every morning, Ziqi and I go to school." Fatty Chu ignored the two of them. "Is that so? These two people were so mysterious. If you go to their house now, there won't be anyone there," Wei Ziqi said as he ate. "Alright, then let's start eating." After Sima Yue finished speaking, she realized that her words were unnecessary. The two of them had already eaten half of their food. After eating breakfast, Sima Yue went back to the house to tidy up and let Little Roar return to the spirit pearl. Originally, contracted spiritual beasts had their own contracted space. However, Little Roar said that it was too boring and went to find Little Spirit to play. When Sima Yue came out, Fatty Chu saw that her hands were empty and asked, "Aren't you bringing your pet?" "No." Little Roar was in the spirit pearl. When he heard Fatty Chu call him a pet, he waved his claws and shouted, "Pet your grandpa. Fatty Chu, there will be a day when this young master will blind your eyes." Little Spirit looked at Little Roar with disdain and said, "Your bloodline is not bad, but your personality is too embarrassing." Little Roar's claws that were still waving in the air froze. After looking at Little Spirit for 2 seconds, he suddenly pounced over. When Sima Yue and Fatty Chu arrived at the classroom, they indeed caused quite a stir. A few people who knew her gathered together and whispered to each other. "Why is he in our class? Isn't he a waste? He can actually come to our class." "That's right, this is too unfair. We all went through the selection process to get in. He, a repeater, can actually be in the same class as us. You guys know him?" "Of course, a waste who can't even sense spiritual energy. Of course we know him." "Heavens, he's actually a waste. Then why is he in our class? Isn't it because of his grandfather? He has a high position and power." "Who is his grandfather?" "The National Protector General. So he is the grandson of the great general." "He's a waste. Can he understand the cultivation methods that we teach him? Even if he understands, can he use it? Coming to our class is just asking for humiliation." "Haha, you're right." Sima Yue glanced at those people. Although they spoke softly, she still heard them. Seeing that there were only seats in the last row of the classroom, she went straight to her seat and sat down. The few people in front of her looked at each other and wanted to find trouble with Sima Yue. Before they could get up, Feng Zhixing came in from outside. They could only sit back down. Habitually looking at the last row of seats, he was surprised to see Sima Yue's figure. "Sima Yue, I'm here." Sima Yue was reading a book in her desk drawer when she heard Feng Zhixing call her name. She raised her head and looked at him. "Come with me." Feng Zhixing said faintly, "The rest of you can revise the cultivation methods that we taught yesterday." Sima Yue nervously followed Feng Zhixing to his office, wondering if he was going to chase her back. After all, she was late for school by a few days. "Why did you only come today?" Feng Zhixing asked as soon as he arrived. However, his voice was still so gentle that it was hard to tell if he was happy or angry. "As expected, something happened at home, so I was delayed," Sima Yue said. Feng Zhixing looked at Sima Yue for a few seconds, as if trying to determine if she was telling the truth. After a while he said, "Come here." Sima Yue did not know what he wanted to do, but she still walked in front of him. Feng Zhixing reached out and grabbed her wrist. Sima Yue was shocked. She did not even see how he did it. Only when she felt a cold sensation on her wrist did she realize that he had grabbed her wrist. "Teacher?" She looked at Feng Zhixing suspiciously. Was he trying to tease her? Seeing the confusion in Sima Yue's eyes, Feng Zhixing let go of his hand and said, "You can go back now." Sima Yue did not understand, but since he said that, it meant that he would not pursue the matter. Chapter 21. You have to be careful. That person might have already sensed that you can cultivate. Sima Yue paused and asked Little Spirit in her heart, "Didn't you say that with you around, no one would be able to tell that I can cultivate?" "Normally, yes. Little Spirit said, I can hide the fluctuations of your spiritual energy. Normal people wouldn't be able to tell, but that person gave me a mysterious feeling. When he grabbed you just now, he should have sensed it. Why did he want to test me? Sima Yue thought for a while, but she couldn't figure it out, so she threw it to the back of her mind. Right now, she should be thinking about how to make the best use of her time to cultivate. When she returned to the classroom, everyone's eyes fell on her again. Most of them were gloating, wondering if Feng Zhixing had asked her to leave. Sima Yue walked towards her seat. Halfway, a leg suddenly stretched out in front of her, wanting to trip her. Seeing that she was about to trip on that person's leg, she took half a step forward and stepped on that person's leg. Then she walked over. Ah! When Sima Yue stepped over, her entire weight pressed down on that person, causing him to cry out. Sima Yue, how can you walk like that? That person shouted at Sima Yue. I just walked like that. Sima Yue walked back to her seat without looking back, completely ignoring that person. You. That person stood up and wanted to teach Sima Yue a lesson, but was pulled back by her desk mate. Miss Meng, Teacher Feng is here. Meng Ting saw Feng Zhixing walk into the classroom and could only sit down unwillingly. She turned her head and looked at Sima Yue, her eyes filled with hatred. Miss Meng, don't be angry. If you want to teach her a lesson, you will have a chance. He Qiuji said. That's true. Meng Ting said, even if she is the grandson of the great general, my Meng family will not be afraid. Yes, although Sima Lai is the great general, he has no family. How can he be compared to the Meng family? He Qiuji said with a smile. Quiet. Feng Zhixing looked at the 35 people in the classroom and said, today, we will continue with yesterday's lesson. Sima Yue listened to Feng Zhixing's lesson. Everyone else was sitting down and taking notes, but she was only listening attentively and didn't make a move. Why aren't you taking notes? When Feng Zhixing was taking notes, Bei Gongtang finished, and saw that Sima Yue had not started to take hers to take the initiative. Sima Yue looked at Bei Gongtang and was stunned. After that she said, I've remembered it all. Her to Sima Yue to Sima Yue pointed at her head and said, I've remembered it all here. Seeing Sima Yue to Tang to remember to Tang? Teacher to Tang to the Tang to the Tang. It was obvious that Bei Gongtang didn't believe her, but she didn't say anything else and went to look at her own notes. Sima Yue didn't think that Bei Gongtang would sit in the last row. She looked at how seriously she was reading her book. She was quiet, and the cold aura on her body gave her a feeling of being detached from the world. She couldn't understand what she had experienced to give others such a feeling. Also, there was uncontrollable hatred in her eyes. There was only one lesson a day. It was either in the morning or in the afternoon. When there was no lesson, it was for the students to cultivate or do other things. After class, Sima Yue, Fatty Chu and the others returned to the dormitory. She rubbed her hungry stomach and went into the kitchen. While cooking, she couldn't help but sigh. She spent so much time on eating every day. She didn't know when she would be able to advance. Don't worry, you can also cultivate by making food. Little Spirit sensed her thoughts and said, eating can also help you cultivate? Why haven't I heard of it before? Sima Yue asked. That's because you're ignorant. Little Spirit said the truth without holding back. Sima Yue's mouth twitched. This guy, did he have to be so sharp? She was a magnanimous person and didn't want to argue with a child. She asked humbly, how can you cultivate by eating? Although normal plants can't cultivate, they can absorb spiritual energy and store it in their bodies to become spiritual plants. Little Spirit said. She thought about the photosynthesis of plants in her previous life. It also absorbed carbon dioxide and turned it into oxygen. Plants could absorb spiritual energy. As long as you eat things that contain spiritual energy, you can absorb it into your body. Little Spirit said. Really? Sima Yue didn't believe it and said, if it's really like that, then other people would have discovered this method long ago. But I've never seen anyone mention it. That's because the spiritual energy here is too thin. It can't be absorbed into the body. So the things here are all normal plants and not spiritual plants. Of course it's useless to eat them. Little Spirit said disdainfully. When Sima Yue heard that the things here weren't spiritual plants, she couldn't help but shout at Little Spirit, then tell me what's the use of it? Stupid. Little Spirit scolded, the things outside aren't spiritual plants, but it doesn't mean that the things inside the spirit pearl aren't spiritual plants. When Sima Yue heard Little Spirit's words, she hurriedly returned to her room and closed the door before entering the spirit pearl. Little spirit, what do you mean by what you said just now? Little spirit slowly appeared in the air and said, feel the spiritual energy here. Sima Yue closed her eyes and felt for a moment. When she opened her eyes, she excitedly said, such rich spiritual energy. Little spirit proudly snorted. Then everything here are spiritual plants? Sima Yue asked. Of course. Little spirit said, follow me. Sima Yue followed little spirit to another area. The moment she stepped in, she saw a sea of vegetables and some domestic animals. Seeing the familiar domestic animals, Sima Yue was a little surprised. She also felt nostalgic and asked, why are there these animals here? These are all low-leveled animals. Even after cultivating here for so many years, they still can't become spiritual beasts. They can only breed continuously. Because of this, I have to clean them up every once in a while. Little spirit said. I haven't seen these animals in this world before. Why are there so many of them here? Sima Yue asked. These were all left behind by the previous owner. I don't know where he went to catch them. Little spirit said, anyway, they have lived here for a long time and have not become spiritual beasts. But at least there is some spiritual energy in their bodies. Also, the vegetables here are all spiritual plants. There are seasonings over there. Sima Yue looked at the familiar ingredients. There were also pepper, cumin and other seasonings. She said, your previous owner didn't go to Earth to rob, right? Who knows? Anyway, he is also a foodie. If you want the vegetables here, you just need to use your mind to control them. Little spirit said and disappeared. Sima Yue saw little spirit disappear and felt the loneliness in his words. She guessed that he must have seen these things and missed his previous owner. However, with these ingredients she could make a lot of delicious food in the future. Moreover, she could cultivate. Just thinking about it made her feel good. Chapter 22. Sima Yue went to open the door and saw Fatty Chu anxiously knocking on the door. When she opened the door, she saw his hand in the air. What's wrong? She asked. You're here. Fatty Chu said, hurry up and find your brother. What happened? Why did he suddenly want her to find her brother? That, when I came back from the library, I heard Meng Ting say that she wants to challenge you. Fatty Chu panted. Challenge me? Yes. Fatty Chu said, she said that she wants to challenge you. She said that a trash like you shouldn't stay in a class like ours. She said that she wants to defeat you and make you scram. That's what she said, not what I meant. I got it. Thank you for informing me. Sima Yue said calmly. If she really wants to challenge you, I'm afraid that something bad will happen. So you should hurry up and find your brother. Fatty Chu said. Why do I have to find my brother? I can settle it myself. Sima Yue didn't think that this matter was serious, so she stood at the door without moving. Fatty Chu looked at Sima Yue's indifferent expression and said anxiously, although you are the grandson of the great general, the Meng family is not to be trifled with. They are the biggest family in Yu City and she is also a direct descendant, so she has always looked down on others. Since she said that she wants to challenge you, she will definitely come. She's very strong? Sima Yue asked. She is only 13 years old and is already a level 5 spiritual knight. Very strong? Sima Yue looked at him and asked. For people of the same age, she is very strong. Fatty Chu replied, my 5th young master, you don't have to stay here. Hurry up and find your brother, let him protect you. If she really wants to challenge me, even if I escape today, she will still find trouble with me. Sima Yue said, but isn't fighting prohibited in the academy? Fighting privately is definitely not allowed, but there is a challenge arena in the academy. As long as you are on the arena, you can fight. Fatty Chu said, many people in the academy choose to settle their personal grudges on the arena. You are responsible for your own life and death on the stage. You stepped on Meng Ting's leg in front of everyone in the classroom. Based on her personality, she will definitely take revenge on you. Fatty Chu said, you should hide for as long as you can. Hide. Sima Yue crossed her arms in front of her chest. There's no such word in my dictionary, Sima Yue. But she. Fatty Chu still wanted to convince Sima Yue. The door to the side opened and Wei Ziqi came out. Seeing the two people at a loss, he asked, what's wrong? Fatty Chu looked at Wei Ziqi and said, Meng Ting said that she wanted to challenge Yue. I told her to hurry and find her brother, but she refused to go. Then Meng Ting wants to stir up trouble again. Wei Ziqi seemed to dislike Meng Ting and his tone was a little harsh. Fatty Chu, I'm very grateful for your reminder. However, it's too late to go now. Sima Yue said as she raised her chin towards the entrance of the courtyard. Fatty Chu looked back and saw that Meng Ting had already brought in a few classmates. Sima Yue, I saw Fatty Chu rushing back to inform you and thought that you had already hidden away. I didn't think that you would have the guts to still be here. Meng Ting said provocatively when she saw Sima Yue. That's because a person like you is not worthy of me running away. Sima Yue replied with disdain. You. Meng Ting had always been the target of flattery since she was young. She was already very unhappy that the other people in the courtyard did not put her in their eyes. She did not think that a trash like Sima Yue would dare to look down on her. She was instantly enraged and pointed at Sima Yue and said, Since Fatty Chu has already told you, then I won't waste my breath. Sima Yue, I want to challenge you. If you lose, then scram out of the Capital Institute and are not allowed to take a step back. You, a level 5 spiritual knight, want to challenge me? Alright, although I don't mind competing with you, you only said what should I do if I lose? What if I win? What's in it for me? Sima Yue did not even look at Meng Ting. She looked down at her nails and asked casually. Ouyang Fei's door opened and he came out. He looked at the people in the courtyard and left coldly without saying anything. Bei Gong Tang's door opened as well. She looked at Meng Ting and frowned, saying, If you want to quarrel, go outside. Whoever disturbs me while I'm reading can all scram. Sima Yue looked at Ouyang Fei's back and heard Bei Gong Tang's merciless words. She secretly thought that the two of them were really similar. Meng Ting seemed to be afraid of Bei Gong Tang. When she heard Bei Gong Tang shouting at her, she lowered her aura and turned to Sima Yue saying, You, a trash who can't even sense spiritual energy, can win against me. What a joke. The people who came with Meng Ting all laughed as if they found Sima Yue's words extremely funny. Is it a joke? Sima Yue smirked, saying, You think it's funny now, but be careful that you won't be able to laugh later. Tell me, what do you want? Meng Ting asked. Sima Yue looked at Bei Gong Tang, who was still standing at the door. Her aura was getting colder and colder. She said, I don't want to disturb my roommate. Since you want to challenge me and want me to accept your challenge, you must give me some benefits. How about this, if I'm lucky enough to win against you, you just have to take a detour when you see me. If you agree, we'll go to the challenge arena. If you don't, then scram. Alright, then I'll agree. If you win, I'll take a detour when I see you and won't find trouble with you. If I win, you have to pack your things and get out of the capital school. Meng Ting said. Then it's settled. You go to the challenge arena first, I'll go after you. Sima Yue took a step back and closed the door. You. Fatty Chu didn't even have time to speak before he was shut out by Sima Yue. Let's go, we'll wait for her at the challenge arena. Meng Ting glanced at Sima Yue's door proudly and left with her people. The courtyard finally quietened down. Bei Gong Tang glanced at Fatty Chu, who was standing outside Sima Yue's door, and turned to close the door. Fatty Chu thought of the general's residence's fourth young master, Sima Yulu, who asked him to help take care of Sima Yue. He didn't expect that in just half a day Sima Yue would be in trouble. Chapter 23. What's wrong? Sima Yue asked as she tugged on his long ears. Yu, do you really want to compete with that White Lotus? Little Roar said. That's right. She has already come to provoke me. How can I back down? Sima Yue casually threw Little Roar away. Little Roar drew a beautiful arc in the air. Seeing that he was about to hit the wall, he quickly twisted his body and flew back. Seeing that Sima Yue was looking for something in her spatial ring, he floated beside her and asked, Yu, what are you looking for? A weapon. Sima Yue said, I need to find a suitable weapon. The weapons in the spatial ring that my cheap father left behind are not suitable for me. You want a weapon? I saw that little spirit has a lot. Little Roar said. Really? Then let's go take a look. Sima Yue finished speaking and brought Little Roar into the spirit pearl. Once they entered, Little Spirit appeared in front of Sima Yue. Without waiting for her to speak, he said, Follow me. It seemed that he knew what she came in for. This is a weapon that was refined by the previous owner. Little Spirit brought them to a room filled with all kinds of weapons. How many previous owners do you have? Sima Yue asked after hearing Little Spirit's words. Anyway, there are a few. Little Spirit disappeared after he finished speaking. Sima Yue looked around the room and realized that most of the weapons here were high-grade saint weapons. Moreover, there were many divine weapons. It was difficult for her to find a low-key one. After looking through almost all the weapons here, she finally found a simple dagger in a corner. She picked up the dagger and weighed it in her hand before saying, "I'll take this." After Sima Yue took the dagger and left, Little Spirit came out of the room again. Looking at the corner where the dagger was placed, he said with some surprise, "She actually chose that weapon. It actually did not resist. I didn't expect that the previous owners did not gain its approval, but a girl who just started cultivating actually gained its attention. Is this the ape's dung? Or would she have a different future in the future?" Sima Yue took the dagger out and removed the cover. She was dumbfounded. Ah! Little Roar looked at the way Sima Yue was behaving and held his stomach as he laughed out loud. You actually chose such a rusty dagger after such a long time." Sima Yue looked at the dagger in her hand helplessly. Although it felt good, why was the blade covered in rust except for the handle? How was she supposed to compete? At this time, a man ran to their courtyard and shouted, "Sima Yue, Miss Ming asked me to ask if you don't want to compete. If you don't want to compete, quickly pack your things and get out of here." After saying that, the man scampered away. Although Meng Ting was not afraid of Sima Yue's grandfather, it did not mean that they were not afraid as well. If Sima Yue saw them, they would not have a good ending. Sima Yue heard the words outside and sighed, saying, "Now that I don't even have time to polish it, I'll just use it. Although it doesn't look good, it seems to be quite compatible with my hand." Little Roar looked at the dagger in Sima Yue's hand with disdain and said, "Wouldn't any other weapon be better than this? What do you know? The person and the weapon must have a certain degree of compatibility. If you randomly pick a weapon, who knows if it will hinder you at a crucial moment." Sima Yue put the dagger in the cover and said, "Just like some weapons, different people will have different strengths." Not knowing if it was an illusion, Sima Yue felt that when she said this, the dagger in her hand seemed to move. "Alright, you've said this before, but you said that you haven't found a suitable weapon," Little Roar said. He looked at the dagger in Sima Yue's hand again and his eyes were filled with unwillingness to look at it. In her past life, she did not find a suitable weapon. Could it be that she was waiting for this almost rusted dagger? This kind of reality made his heart feel stifled. Sima Yue looked at Little Roar's expression and felt 3 black lines appear on her forehead. Was he looking down on her weapon or her? What was with that sorrowful face? "Do you want to go back?" she asked. "No, I want to watch you beat up by Lian Hua from outside." Little Roar shook his head like a rattledrum. "I haven't seen you beat up trash in a long time. I don't want to go back." "Alright then." Sima Yue placed the dagger on her waist and hugged Little Roar as she walked out the door. People who could not cultivate could not use the interspatial ring, so this dagger could not be placed in the interspatial ring. Hearing the door next door open, Bei Gong Tang, who was reading a book by the window, looked up and shook her head before continuing to read her book. "Yue." Sima Yue had just walked out of the courtyard when she heard Wei Ziqi call out to her from behind. "Ziqi, is something the matter?" "Nothing." Wei Ziqi smiled and said, "I'll accompany you to the challenge arena. No matter what the result is, it's better if someone goes with you." Did he want to bring her back after he was defeated? Sima Yue thought. "All right, let's go." The two of them walked towards the challenge arena and on the way, they saw many people pointing at her and whispering. "I thought that she had already dropped out of school. I didn't think that she would actually go to the freshman class. Her grandfather is the country's great general. If she wants to stay in the academy, it's just a matter of words." Really, people with this kind of status can only rely on the power behind them. It's too unfair to others. "I heard that she challenged Miss Meng Ting this time. If she loses, she will have to leave the academy forever and never come back. Hurry up and make her leave. If this kind of person stays in the academy, it's just bringing shame to the academy." I also heard that she overestimated herself and said that if she wins, Miss Meng Ting will have to take a detour whenever she sees her. She's really thinking too much. I heard that Miss Meng Ting's temper is not very good. Since she provoked her, it would be strange if she didn't get beaten up badly this time. That Miss Meng Ting is already a level 5 spiritual knight at such a young age. Although her level is not very high, it's more than enough to deal with trash like her. That's right, let's just wait for her to be chased out of the academy. When Sima Yue and Wei Ziqi passed by, those people thought that they couldn't hear them, so they spoke without restraint. Who would have thought that Sima Yue and Wei Ziqi could hear them clearly? Wei Ziqi was a little angry when he heard those words. However, when he saw Sima Yue, it was as if nothing had happened and she leisurely walked towards the stage. "You're not angry?" Wei Ziqi asked. "What's there to be angry about?" Sima Yue said disapprovingly. A dog that bites will not bark. The best way to make those barking dogs shut up is to use strength to speak. When Wei Ziqi heard Sima Yue's words, he was stunned. Looking at her firm back, he couldn't help but think, is this kind of person really a trash? The battle arena should be here, right? Sima Yue came to a large door and raised her head to look at the words on the door. Even though she hadn't entered, she could already hear the sounds coming from inside. Chapter 24. They could not afford to offend Sima Yue, but if she was kicked out of the academy, everyone was willing to see her in a sorry state. Why hasn't that trash appeared yet? Even though they did not dare to call her trash in front of Sima Yue, but behind her back they would definitely call her trash nonstop. Could that trash be scared? Someone asked. Possibly. After all, Miss Ming is a spiritual knight, and she is a complete trash. Facing such a challenge with her personality, it is very likely that she would run away. If that's the case, she wouldn't have the face to stay in the academy. How could she not have the face? That trash's face is thicker than the city walls, or else she wouldn't be pestering young Master Murong. This young Master Murong is really pitiful to actually be liked by a guy. Every time I see his expression when he hears Sima Yue's name, I feel that he is really pitiful. Haha, this Sima Yue is going to be kicked out of the academy. Is young Master Murong and the rest here? They are here. They're sitting at the bottom row. Everyone looked towards the direction that the person was pointing at, and indeed they saw Murong En and Nalan Lan sitting in the middle of the first row. Murong, this Sima Yue won't not come, right? Nalan Lan sat beside Murong En, showing off her noble temperament. Even if she doesn't come, I have a way to make her disappear from the academy. Murong En said, I originally thought that she was expelled from the academy, but I didn't expect that she actually went to the freshman year. If she still dares to harass me, then don't blame me for being ruthless. Brother-in-law, don't worry, that trash definitely won't dare to harass you. Nalan Chi said with a smile. Little brother, what are you calling me? Nalan Lan was embarrassed by how Nalan Chi addressed Murong and haha, since you two are already a couple, it's just that you haven't held a wedding yet. In my heart, Brother Murong is already my brother-in-law, isn't that right? Nalan Chi did not forget to drag Murong and into the water after he finished speaking. Even though Murong and did not say anything, he did not deny it, which meant that he agreed with Nalan Chi. Look, the trash is here. It was not known who shouted, but everyone's gaze was focused on the door as they saw Sima Yue and Wei Ziqi walking in. Meng Ting, who was standing in the middle of the stage, saw Sima Yue. She waved her hand and the crowd quieted down. You made us wait for so long. I thought you wouldn't dare to come. Meng Ting looked at Sima Yue mockingly. Why would I do that? It's a rare opportunity to stop you from finding trouble with me in the past. How could I miss such a good opportunity? Sima Yue looked around at the spectator stands. Indeed, there were many people here. It seemed like there were many people who wanted to see her make a fool of herself. Since you're already here, don't talk nonsense. Hurry up and come up. Meng Ting impatiently said. She could no longer tolerate wasting so much time with this kind of trash. I'll wait for you at the viewing platform. Wei Ziqi said. No need, I'll be done soon. Just wait for me here for a while. Sima Yue said. All right. Wei Ziqi nodded and stood below the stage, watching her walk up step by step. Meng Ting looked at Sima Yue and said with disdain, if I were you, I would admit defeat for the sake of my family's reputation. What? Sima Yue asked. Because if you don't admit defeat, I'll beat you until you do. At that time, the general's residence's young master will be beaten so badly. The entire general's residence will become a joke. Meng Ting said. You're so confident that you can beat me? Sima Yue smiled and asked. Meng Ting puffed up her chest and raised her chin, saying confidently, of course. You. At this time, Sima Yulu and Fatty Chu rushed in from outside. Seeing Sima Yue on the stage, Sima Yulu was scared out of his wits. You, why are you up there? Come down quickly. Sima Yulu shouted at Sima Yue. You, come down quickly, huff huff. Fatty Chu said while panting. Fourth brother, why are you here? Sima Yue saw the two of them panting and guessed that Fatty Chu had gone to look for him. She didn't see Fatty Chu when she came out and thought that he was in his room. She didn't expect that he had gone to get help for her. She would remember this friendship. Seeing the worried look in their eyes, she smiled and said, Fourth brother, once I'm on the stage, I can't come down unless I win or lose. Unless I admit defeat, I can't go down first. She had heard Wei Ziqi explain the rules on the way here. Then, Sima Yulu wanted Sima Yue to admit defeat so that she wouldn't be beaten up. Fourth brother. Sima Yue knew what Sima Yulu was going to say and said, even if it's for the sake of the Sima residence's reputation, I won't run away without a fight. Also, I won't let the Sima residence be humiliated because of me. Sima Yue's words stunned everyone present. She wouldn't let the Sima residence be humiliated because of her? Was this really Sima Yue? Yue. Sima Yule looked at the smile on Sima Yue's face and muttered her name. His fifth brother was really different now. Don't worry, I'll be fine. Sima Yue gave Sima Yulu a cheering hand sign before looking at Meng Ting and saying, let's begin. Meng Ting looked at the people below and said to Sima Yue, since you can't cultivate, I'll let you use your weapon. Now take out your weapon. Little Roar, who was in Wei Ziqi's embrace, jumped around excitedly when he heard Sima Yue say to begin. However, when he heard Meng Ting say to take out her weapon, he immediately fell back down and used his two paws to cover his eyes. Wei Ziqi felt the change in Little Roar's attitude and didn't know why he was so excited just now. However, he understood in the next second. Because Sima Yue took out a dagger from her waist. The sheath on the dagger was very simple, as if it was just a piece of cloth. When she took out the dagger from the sheath, the whole crowd burst into laughter. Ha ha ha, does the general's residence have no weapons? Or does it mean that you don't even have the money to buy a weapon? You're actually using a rusty dagger to fight against the spirit knight. What a joke. Sima Yue looked at the dagger in Sima Yue's hand and wanted to cover his eyes like Little Roar. This was really a terrible weapon. Meng Ting looked at the weapon Sima Yue took out and was stunned. She smiled and said, Sima Yue, it's fine if you don't have any spirit energy, but you're actually using this dagger to fight against me. Are you planning to use the rust on it to dissolve my spirit energy? Sima Yue also guessed that this would be the reaction she would get when she took out the dagger. However, she really liked the feel of the dagger and planned to use it as her own weapon in the future. Once she got back, she would just have to grind off the rust on it. Chapter 25. A referee announced the start of the battle and Meng Ting began to condense her spiritual chi in her hands. Sima Yue did not move and everyone thought that she was scared silly. After all, she was a waste and seeing spiritual chi, it was normal for her to be scared silly. Yue, why isn't she moving? Fatty Chu said anxiously. If she doesn't move, Meng Ting will finish condensing her spiritual chi. Wei Ziqi also frowned and could not understand why Sima Yue was not moving. There was no fear on her face. She was even smiling, a confident smile. Sima Yulu was so nervous that he could not speak. Both his hands were clenched into fists and he looked like he was ready to save her at any time. As long as Sima Yue was injured, he would immediately rush forward. Many people had already predicted that Sima Yue would be injured by the spiritual chi and everyone had a victorious smile on their faces. However, very quickly their smiles froze on their faces. Just as Meng Ting's spirit energy was about to condense, Sima Yu's body suddenly moved, and ran towards Meng Ting at an extremely fast speed. In just a few seconds she had already appeared behind Meng Ting. Meng Ting saw Sima Yue running towards her and did not care about the fact that her spiritual chi was not fully condensed. She threw the spiritual chi ball at her. Just as it was about to hit Sima Yue, she moved her body strangely and dodged the spiritual chi ball. Bang! The spiritual chi ball landed on the stage and made a loud explosion sound. Meng Ting thought that she had hit Sima Yue. However, before she could celebrate, she felt a cold sensation on her neck. You lost. Sima Yu's voice came from behind her. Everyone who was present was stunned. Sima Yu actually ran behind Meng Ting. Her right hand went around her shoulder and placed the rusty dagger on the left side of her neck. How did you get behind me? Meng Ting said in surprise. That's how I got here. Sima Yu smiled unscrupulously. She stretched out her hand and touched her body, saying, although this dagger is a little rusty and probably a little blunt, as long as I use my strength, I can still cut your neck. Even if I can't cut your neck, I can still leave a scar on your face. After she finished speaking, she drew 2 scars on Meng Ting's face. Meng Ting felt the dagger on her face and screamed in fear. Ah, don't cut my face. I admit defeat. Hearing Meng Ting admit defeat, the people in the stands couldn't believe their eyes. Miss Meng actually lost to a waste. Miss, how did she get behind Miss Yue? She's just taking advantage of the situation. If she really fought with Miss Meng, she definitely wouldn't be able to beat her. Yue, say win. Sima Yue's win Yue's? Oh God. Sima Yue let go of Meng Ting and said, "Since you've admitted defeat, you have to keep your promise. Next time you see me, if you dare to find trouble." She did not finish her sentence, but her meaning was clear. Meng Ting glared at Sima Yue unwillingly as she watched her walk to the side of the stage, pick up her dagger and casually walk down. But no matter how unwilling she was, there was nothing she could do. With so many people watching, if she did not keep her promise, she would become the target of everyone's disdain. Because in this world, people hated people who did not keep their promises. It settled so quickly? Fatty Chu saw Sima Yue walk down from the stage and walk towards them. He was still in a daze. "What do you think?" Sima Yue saw Fatty Chu's dazed look and stretched out her hand to poke his head. Sima Yue saw Sima Yue come down safely and his heart finally relaxed. Once he relaxed, his anger flared up and he scolded her. "How can you accept someone's challenge so casually? Do you know that you are responsible for your own life and death on the stage? What if an accident happens? Four of you, aren't I fine?" Sima Yue went up and pulled Sima Yuli's hand, saying, "All right, let's talk when we get back. There are so many people here. You know how embarrassing it is." Sima Yuli glared at her. "Cough cough, let's go back first." Wei Ziqi saw that many people were looking at them strangely and suggested, "Let's go." On the way back, Sima Yuli kept scolding Sima Yue, saying that she should not have ignored her own danger and accepted the challenge. If there was anything she needed to tell them, they would help her solve it. Hearing Sima Yuli's worried scolding, Sima Yue said seriously, "Fourth brother, I've already grown up. I can't always rely on you to protect me. You have given my family and family warmth, so I want to protect you. I want to become strong so that I can protect the people I want to protect. But if I'm afraid of this kind of challenge, I'll have given up on myself. How can a coward become strong?" "Sai, you've really grown up." Sima Yulu patted Sima Yue's shoulder. He couldn't tell how he felt when he heard this. Should he be happy that she had grown up, or should he be sad that she was about to leave their protection? Sima Yue could feel the complex emotions in his heart. She pulled on his arm and placed her head on his shoulder, saying, "No matter what I look like, I'll always be your younger brother. You'll always be my older brothers. We'll always be a family." Sima Yulu patted Sima Yue's head, saying, We'll always be together." "Damn, can you guys not be so mushy?" Fatty Chu rubbed his arm as if he had goosebumps. Just now, he and Wei Ziqi were still feeling emotional over Sima Yue's words. When they turned around and saw the two of them snuggled up together, they immediately felt disgusted. "I say, don't tell me you've extended your evil claws to your older brothers." Sima Yue left Sima Yuli's body and kicked Fatty Chu, shouting, "Fatty Chu, go die." Fatty Chu casually dodged Sima Yue's attack. Of course, this was also because Sima Yue didn't really want to attack him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to dodge with his skills. "You dodged quickly." Sima Yue rubbed her stomach, saying, "I'm so hungry, let's go back and make some food." After they went back, Sima Yue made some simple dishes for everyone. After lunch, everyone went back. Sima Yue went back to her house and took out a whetstone from her spirit pearl, preparing to grind the rust off the dagger. But just as she took out the dagger and placed it on the whetstone, she heard a sharp cry and Little Spirit's scolding. Chapter 26. Sima Yue looked at Little Roar, who had the same puzzled expression. That scream did not come from Little Roar either. Before she could think of anything else, the scene in front of her changed. She was already inside the spirit pearl and Little Spirit was floating in front of her. "Didn't you say that I can only come in if I want to? How did you get me in?" Little Spirit rolled his eyes at Sima Yue and said, "Those are just normal spirit tools. As long as it's a slightly stronger spirit tool, you can still pull it in. For example, me." "Alright then." Sima Yue touched her nose and asked, "Why did you pull me in? What were you shouting just now?" "So stupid." Little Spirit felt that this Sima Yue was the stupidest master he had ever had. He really could not understand why he had such an affinity with her to be able to recognize her as his master. Sima Yue bent her index finger and lightly knocked on Little Spirit's head. She said unhappily, "Is there a spirit tool that looks down on its master? You brat, if you look down on me again I'll roast you on fire." "I'm just speaking the truth." Little Spirit was not afraid of Sima Yue's threat. "Alright, quickly tell me the reason why you stopped me from pulling me in." Sima Yue finished speaking and with a thought, a chair appeared in front of her. She had already discovered that in here, her willpower was God. As long as she thought about it, things from other places would instantly appear in front of her eyes. Little Spirit saw that Sima Yue understood this point so quickly and raised his eyebrows. Aya, why are you keeping us in suspense? Hurry up and say it. Little Roar, who was waiting at the side, saw that Little Spirit was still not saying anything and urged him. Little Spirit did not answer them and landed on the whetstone. He stretched out his chubby little hand and poked at the dagger, saying, "How long are you going to pretend for?" The dagger did not move. "If you continue to pretend, I'll let her grind you," Little Spirit threatened. It seemed that this threat was quite effective. The dagger gently shook twice on the whetstone before it stood up. With a whoosh, it flew towards Little Spirit's head. Taking advantage of Little Spirit's unprepared state, the dagger heavily struck down. At the same time, a tender voice rang out, "If you dare to grind me, I'll chop you into pieces." Little Spirit's temper was ignited. He did not care about Sima Yue and the rest and went to fight with the dagger. Sima Yue and Little Roar were stunned by the scene in front of them as they stared blankly at the dagger and Little Spirit threatening each other. "This dagger can even talk?" Little Roar said in shock. "Do you know what's going on?" Sima Yue asked. "I don't know." Little Roar replied straightforwardly. "Didn't you say that you are an ancient divine beast and know everything?" Sima Yue turned her head and asked. "Aya, I'm only a descendant of the ancient divine Roar. I'm not really an old monster that has lived for tens of millions of years. When I said that I know everything, it came from our inheritance. This fellow wasn't in the inheritance, so naturally I wouldn't know." Little Roar rolled his eyes at Sima Yue and sighed in his heart at the same time. He had said these words to her before, but her soul was damaged and she could not remember it. After waiting for Little Spirit and the dagger to fight for a while, Sima Yue spoke out to stop them. "I say, how long are you two going to fight for? Shouldn't you tell me what's going on?" When the dagger heard Sima Yue's words, it flew over with a whoosh and stood in front of Sima Yue, saying, "Little Yu, don't use the whetstone to grind me." Sima Yue stretched out her hand and poked the flying dagger, saying, "There's so much rust on your body. If you don't grind it until it's smooth, how can you use it? Most importantly, how can a freaking dagger like you talk? Little Spirit, you answer." She suddenly raised her voice, causing Little Spirit and dagger to jump in fright. "It's not an ordinary divine weapon," Little Spirit said. "I can already tell. Get to the point, what is this fellow?" Sima Yue said. "I'm not a thing, I'm a supreme divine weapon." The dagger said. "Not a thing." Sima Yue was shocked by the dagger's words, but at the same time she was also shocked by the latter half of its sentence. "You're a supreme divine weapon? The supreme divine weapon is obviously me." Little Spirit heard the dagger's words and immediately retorted. "I'm the supreme divine weapon, you're stronger than you." The dagger said. "I'm stronger." Little Spirit said. "I'm stronger." "Alright, you two, stop arguing. Hurry up and tell me what's going on here. What are you?" Sima Yue stopped the two of them from continuing to fight. If it wasn't for the fact that they were fighting, they wouldn't have stopped until tomorrow. "Little Yu, I already said that I'm not a thing." The dagger said with some grievance. "I'm a supreme divine weapon, Ling Long." Little Spirit heard the dagger saying that it was a supreme divine weapon and wanted to say something, but Sima Yue glared at him and he swallowed his words. "Ling Long? What kind of weapon is that?" Sima Yue asked puzzledly. "It's Ling Long." Ling Long said, "I used to be a Ling Long divine stone that was born with the heaven and earth during the ancient times. The ores in my body were enough to refine a divine weapon. Later on, during the ancient times, there was a divine weapon refiner. He found me and refined me into a divine weapon. Before I was refined into a divine weapon, I already had consciousness. During the refining process, I was forced to separate and fuse together. The pain caused me to lose consciousness and I even died. In the end, when I opened my eyes again, I had already become like this." "Why did he refine you into a dagger? In this world, a dagger's attack power is not as good as other weapons." Sima Yue asked puzzledly. "This is also not my original form." Ling Long said, "It's just that I can only take on this form now." "So you have other forms?" Sima Yue was excited. "Yes, since it's called a supreme divine weapon, I definitely have my own abilities." Exquisite's voice became proud as she said, "I can transform into any weapon. Spears, broadswords, sharp swords, whatever I want to transform into, I can transform into. Other than this guy, I can copy any other weapon." "This means that you're not as good as me," Little Spirit said proudly. Sima Yue looked at the dagger with shining eyes and said, Then you can transform into another weapon for me to see? This transformation also needs to be controlled by the owner. The dagger said, Little Yu, I really like you. Let me acknowledge you as my master. Acknowledge you as its master? This weapon needs to acknowledge its master? Sima Yue asked. Stupid. Without acknowledging you as its master, how could you enter the spirit pearl? Little Spirit said. Sima Yue glared at Little Spirit. This guy, recently he always liked to scold her for being stupid. How was she stupid? It's just that she didn't understand this world very well. Kikik, the dagger's temper was not bad when it met Little Spirit. It patiently explained to Sima Yue, in this world there needs to be a connection between a spirit weapon and its master. This connection will allow the two to become closer and the spirit weapon will be able to unleash more power. Chapter 27. Seeing that you're covered in rust, I didn't expect you to be so sharp, Sima Yue said. She wanted to retract her hand, but found that her hand could not leave Ling Long's body. The situation was exactly the same as Little Spirit's last time. She felt as if all the blood in her body had been sucked dry by Ling Long. Her body became cold, and before she could think about whether she would be sucked dry, she had already fallen to the ground. Yu. Little Roar saw that Sima Yue had fainted and quickly flew over. Don't worry, she just lost a lot of blood. She won't die. Little Spirit said. After Ling Long had sucked enough blood, she fell beside Sima Yue and gave a satisfied burp. Following that, the rust on the dagger fell off, and the entire dagger was so clean that it could be used as a mirror. The edge of the dagger was suffused with a cold light, and one could tell that it was incomparably sharp. Not only that, after the rust had completely fallen off, the dagger instantly became transparent. Little Roar and Little Spirit could only see Sima Yu's blood flowing back and forth inside the dagger, staining every part of the dagger with traces of blood. At the same time, a ray of red light shot up to the sky, almost illuminating the entire interior of the spirit pearl in red. Luckily this was inside the spirit pearl. If it was outside, this movement would definitely attract a lot of trouble. Little Spirit and Little Roar were blinded by the dazzling red light. When the red light dissipated, they opened their eyes and saw a little doll sitting on Sima Yu's body, smiling happily. The little doll's voice was very soft as if it was a newborn doll. Little doll? Little Roar and Little Spirit were stunned. You, how can you be a little doll? Little Spirit pointed at Ling Long, and you're a girl. Although Ling Long had stayed in the spirit pearl for tens of millions of years, she had always had the appearance of a dagger. He never thought that Ling Long would actually be a little doll. Why can't I become a little doll? Aren't you a little doll yourself? Ling Long turned her back to Little Spirit and looked at Sima Yu's pale face, asking, when will Master wake up? Cute girl. Little Roar flew in front of Ling Long and said, Little sister Ling Long, don't worry. Yu will wake up soon. Sister, your sister. Ling Long stood up and stepped on Little Roar's face, saying, when Big Sister was formed, you didn't even know which corner of the world you were in yet to reincarnate. How dare you call me Little Sister? If you want to call me that, you have to call me Sister Ling Ling. Little Roar felt as if his face was about to be stomped into a meat patty. He extended his little paw and slapped Ling Long's leg away, saying in a fawning manner, does Sister Ling Long's leg hurt? Do you want me to blow on it for you? With your soft skin and tender flesh, can you hurt me? Ling Long was very happy to be called Big Sister Ling Long. This little critter was quite cute. She then flew back to Sima Yue and sat down. She supported her chin with her hands and looked at the unconscious Sima Yue worriedly. Little Roar could tell that this Ling Long definitely had a fiery temper. If she didn't like someone, she would definitely shout and kill. It was no wonder that people like Little Spirit could not stand her and quarrel with her for so many years. However, she seemed to like Sima Yue very much, even before they had recognized her as their master. But why? Not only Little Roar could not figure it out, even Little Spirit could not figure it out. He and Ling Long had been together for so many years. He saw her go out again and again to find her master. Every time she returned disappointed. In the end, she was too lazy to go out and find her master and just stayed in the spirit pearl. Why would a person who was so picky with her master like Sima Yue, who had just become a spiritual knight, so much? Little Spirit unknowingly asked his own doubts. Ling Long smiled and said, because she understands me. But, for an offensive divine weapon like you, don't you like strong people? She has just started cultivating. Little Spirit said. She will become strong. Ling Long said with certainty. After she finished speaking, she stretched out her short little hand and lightly poked Sima Yue's face. Sima Yue once again saw a scene that she had not seen for a long time. A thick fire burned a luxurious mansion into ashes. This was not her apartment on Earth, but an ancient building. On the main door hung a signboard that said, Shiman Residence. The flames quickly spread and the magnificent signboard was engulfed in an instant. Seeing the entire mansion engulfed in flames, Sima Yue's heart felt as if it was pierced by countless sharp blades. A figure appeared from the flames and laughed towards her. Shiman Yue, look at your home. It has all become a pile of ashes. Haha, what qualifications do you have to fight with me now? Sima Yue could not see her face clearly, but she remembered that voice. That voice was incomparably sharp and pierced her heart. Why did she have such a dream again? Was this the past life that little Roar said she had forgotten? But she remembered that in her past life on Earth, she was blown up by the organization's second in command. Could it be that she died on Earth and transmigrated to this world and lived another life? She became Shiman Yue and took in little Roar. In the end, her family was exterminated and she was killed. She did not know why, but in her second transmigration she became this love-struck trash young lady. And just like what little Roar said, her soul was injured before she died, so she forgot the memories of this life. And little Roar was the direct evidence that she had forgotten her memories and not a hallucination. Yue, if you can live on, you must not take revenge for us. Living a good life is what we want to see the most. A warm voice sounded from the sea of flames, but hearing this voice, Sima Yue's heart hurt even more. She could not help but call out, Mother? The word mother made her dry eyes wet and tears fell down uncontrollably. She seemed to see a beautiful face gently pressed against her face. She smiled and said, Look, this is our daughter. She looks so much like you. Just like the moon in the sky. Then we'll call her Yue. A male voice replied. Okay girl, from now on you'll be called Shiman Yue. I'm your mother, so you must call me mother first. Sima Yue stretched out her hand, wanting to touch that beautiful face, but before she could touch her, the figure disappeared in the flames. Mother? Ling Long sat on Sima Yue's chest. Seeing the tears at the corner of her eyes, she said with heartache, Why is little Yue crying? Little Yue is so sad, her heart is hurting. Ling Long also wants to cry, sob sob. Little Roar and Little Spirit also felt the pain in Sima Yue's heart. Little Spirit did not know why, but Little Roar guessed that she must have seen some memories of her past life. Little Yue, don't cry, we're here with you. Ling Long crawled to Sima Yue's head and wiped away the tears at the corner of her eyes. Chapter 28. Sima Yue wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes and turned her head to look at the little doll beside her. She asked hesitantly, Ling Long? Ah, little Yue recognized me. Ling Long clapped her hands and said, How did you become a little doll? And so small? Sima Yue sat up and held Ling Long in her hands. She realized that she was only the size of 2 fists. I'm a weapon spirit just like Little Spirit. Of course I can transform into a human. Ling Long giggled and said, But I'm stronger than that fellow. I can transform with my body but he can't. He can only stay in the spirit pearl. So from this point, I'm the supreme artifact. Alright, both of you are very strong. Sima Yue saw that Little Spirit was about to explode and quickly comforted him. Alright, little Yue, what did you dream of just now? Let's hurry up. You're so heartbroken, I'm also heartbroken. Ling Long asked. Nothing much, just some memories from the past. Sima Yue said, Maybe it's because I can cultivate now, so my memories are slowly awakening. Seeing that Sima Yue didn't want to talk about it, everyone didn't ask. Sima Yue got up and saw that she was still at the place where she fainted. The corner of her mouth twitched and said, Can't you guys let me lie on the bed or something? At least that would be more comfortable. I'm too lazy to change places. Little Spirit said confidently. His body flashed and disappeared. I'm also too lazy to argue with you. Otherwise I'll really be angered to death. Sima Yue didn't look at Little Spirit. She looked at Ling Long in her hands and asked, What weapons can you transform into now? I don't know either. Ling Long shook her head and said, Then let's try. Sima Yue said, All right. After speaking, Ling Long transformed into a dagger and said, Master, let's begin. Sima Yue thought of a few weapons in her mind. Other than the first sword, she didn't succeed in the others. After a while, Sima Yue looked at the pot in front of her helplessly and chose to give up. Little Spirit, who had disappeared for a while, came out. When he saw the pot in Sima Yue's hands, he held his stomach and laughed. Ha, what kind of divine weapon is this? Are you planning to turn into a pot and cook for us all? It was an accident. After saying that, Exquisite left Sima Yue's hand and flew into the air, spinning rapidly. When it stopped, the pot was gone and a spatula appeared in front of everyone. Sima Yue's initial anticipation slowly turned into disappointment. When she saw the shovel, she was already in despair. It turned out that she had met yet another scammer. He said he was very powerful, but the end result was too beautiful. She couldn't bear to look at it. Seeing Sima Yue's expression, Exquisite turned into a dagger and said, "Little Yaya, don't be disappointed. Although I can transform into a lot of weapons, they are all related to your current strength. The stronger you are, the more powerful the weapons I can transform into." In other words, with her current strength, she could only transform into pots and pans. Sima Yue felt the disappointment in Exquisite's words and took it over, saying, "I will turn you into a very powerful weapon. Anyway, I don't need any weapons now. When my strength increases, we will become stronger together." "I believe in you, little Yaya," Exquisite said with certainty. "Me too, I want to become stronger together." Little Roar came over and said. Exquisite turned into a little doll and kicked Little Roar's face again, roaring, "Little Yaya and I are encouraging each other. What are you doing here?" Sima Yue looked at Exquisite, who had turned into a fiery girl in an instant and couldn't tell which one was her. When she came out of the spirit pearl, it was already sunset. Luckily, there were no classes in the afternoon, otherwise she would have been caught by Feng Zhixing. Thinking of Feng Zhixing, she thought of Little Spirit's reminder. Did he really know that she could cultivate? But why didn't he expose her in front of everyone? He clearly knew that she was trash, but he was still willing to accept her into the class. Was it really because of the principal and her grandfather? If he had any ulterior motives towards her, she didn't feel any malice from him. It wasn't that he hid it deeply, but she was naturally sensitive to people. She had a keen sense of malice and kindness. This was something she had never missed before. Because of this, there were a few times when she was carrying out missions with the people from the organization, and she was able to survive their betrayal. Therefore, she could feel that Feng Zhixing didn't have any malice towards her. At this moment, in the principal's office, Feng Zhixing, who had just returned from outside, was called over. "Do you know what happened to the students in your class?" The old principal looked at Feng Zhixing and asked, "Are you talking about the challenge stage?" "I heard about it," Feng Zhixing calmly replied. "What do you think?" the old principal asked. "Nothing much, as long as they don't kill anyone, anything is fine." Feng Zhixing leaned on the chair and played with his fingernails, saying, "Besides, life and death on the challenge stage is their own responsibility. If something really happens, the two families won't be able to find me." The old principal was almost choked by Feng Zhixing's words, saying, "I'm asking about Sima Yue's victory over Meng Ting. So what if she won?" Feng Zhixing said, "There's nothing strange about it. Meng Ting is practicing at home behind closed doors. This Sima Yue is said to often fight with people in the capital. She probably won using her combat experience." When the old principal heard that Sima Yue had won against Meng Ting, he thought that she might be able to cultivate. Otherwise, why would this arrogant guy be willing to accept a good-for-nothing? But now, listening to his words, it wasn't unreasonable. After all, during the competition, Sima Yue didn't use any spiritual power. Feng Zhixing saw the old principal's eyes darting around and guessed what he was thinking, but he didn't intend to say anything. "Is there anything else? If there's nothing else, I'll go back first. Tomorrow I'll take them to choose some beast eggs, so I have to go back and prepare." Choosing beast eggs is a very important matter for students, so you have to prepare well. "Have all the beast eggs been replenished?" the old principal asked. "They've all arrived today. I think they've already been sent in," Feng Zhixing replied. "Then you can go and prepare." The old principal said, "Remember to be careful. Don't let them enter that dead egg's house. Otherwise you'll waste your chance." "Since it's a dead egg, why don't you clear it out?" Feng Zhixing asked, puzzled. "It's been passed down since a long time ago. The school's rule is not to touch that egg. As for why, I don't know. But there were a few times in the past when students entered that house and came out unconscious. So I think that even though it's a dead egg, there must be something special about it. That's why it was passed down." "I understand." Feng Zhixing finished speaking and left. At night, when Chioji was walking on campus, a figure blocked her way. "Are you going to choose some eggs tomorrow?" the person asked. "Yes," Chioji replied. "Very good. Help me with something and I'll give you a good reward. The person said. What is it? Tell me first. Help me get rid of Sima Yue. The person said, Meng Ting has the support of the Meng family. What kind of power do you have to protect her? If she finds out that you instigated Meng Ting to challenge her, then... Chapter 29. Fatty Chu did not need to shout as he smelled the aroma and ran over. Not long after, Wei Ziqi also ran over. Go and see if Bei Gongtang and Ouyang Fei are here. If they are, invite them over. Sima Yue instructed Fatty Chu as she cooked. Okay. Fatty Chu sneaked a bite of the dish before leaving. Wei Ziqi originally thought that Bei Gongtang and Ouyang Fei were not in the house. Even if they were, they would not come over. He did not expect that the two of them would come. The two of you actually came over. How rare. Bei Gongtang glanced at Wei Ziqi and did not say anything. She washed her hands and sat at the table. Ouyang Fei replied to Wei Ziqi. Fatty Chu said that the food she made was better than the ones in the canteen. Sima Yue placed the dishes on the table. Little Roar had already finished eating and had gone outside to digest. We are all from the same courtyard, so we should spend more time together. It's better to eat together like this. Fatty Chu said. Do you know how to cook? Bei Gongtang asked coldly. I don't. Fatty Chu said and smiled. Don't we have Yue now? Sima Yue rolled her eyes at Fatty Chu but did not object. We are going to choose a beast egg tomorrow. Ouyang Fei suddenly said. Choose a beast egg? What's that? Sima Yue asked as it was the first time she heard of this. You know that spirit masters can contract spirit beasts, right? Fatty Chu said. Sima Yue nodded. Generally speaking, a spirit master can only contract a limited number of spirit beasts. The stronger they are, the more spirit beasts they can contract. For spirit masters like us, we can only contract one spirit beast. However, if it's a beast egg, it's different. Wei Ziqi explained. Some students do not have good family backgrounds and did not have spirit beasts before. When they choose a beast egg, they can choose their own spirit beast. If they have spirit beasts before, because it's a beast egg, it won't consume too much energy so they can contract it. Sima Yue nodded her head in understanding, saying, It's the Academy's spirit beasts that are given to students. You can say that. However, there is still a need to pay attention to this beast egg selection. Ouyang Fei said. So particular? There are high and low-grade spirit beast eggs inside. Although there aren't many high-grade spirit beast eggs, if we can find them, the spirit beast that comes out in the future will be even more powerful. Sima Yue bit her chopsticks and said, Why are they all beast eggs? What about the mammals? Mammals are also locked in eggs, but those eggs are illusory. Wei Ziqi said, I've heard that the place where the eggs are kept is very mystical. No matter what kind of animal it is, in your eyes it's just an egg. Furthermore, all the eggs look the same. When you choose the egg, if it's a mammal, the egg will disappear. That should be an illusion, right? Sima Yue said, Why are you hallucinating? All the spirit beasts in front of you have turned into eggs. When Bei Gongtang heard Sima Yue's words, she raised her head and looked at her. No matter what, tomorrow is a day worth looking forward to. Fatty Chu said. You all should have your own contracted spirit beasts, right? What are you looking forward to? Sima Yue said. That's not the same. I've heard that there are spirit beast eggs with the blood of divine beasts. If we can get those spirit beasts, we'll be powerful in the future, haha. Fatty Chu said proudly. You can keep daydreaming. Sima Yue said. However, even if we can't get a spirit beast with the blood of divine beasts, as long as it's chosen by the Academy, it'll be rare or powerful. Wei Ziqi said. Is that so? Then I'm really looking forward to it. The next day, Bei Gongtang and Ouyang Fei also joined the breakfast team. Luckily, Little Spirit had already prepared everything, so she only needed to do the cooking. After breakfast, they went to the classroom. Once Sima Yue entered the classroom, she felt all kinds of gazes. Some were filled with disdain, some were surprised, some were curious, and some were angry. It seemed that the matter of her winning against Meng Ting yesterday had caused quite a stir in the class. Although Meng Ting was still angry when she saw her, she was willing to accept her loss. She did not intend to find trouble with her and could only stare daggers at her. Sima Yue and Bei Gongtang sat down at the back of the classroom and ignored those people. It was just that Bei Gongtang was cold and Sima Yue was too lazy to care. Very quickly, Feng Zhixin came to the classroom. Seeing that everyone was present, he said, You all should know what we are going to do today. Before we go, I'll tell you what you need to pay attention to. The place to choose the spirit beast eggs is at the back mountain of the academy. There are 4 doors there and you can enter 3 of them. After you enter, you will see illusions and many spirit beast eggs will appear. Every spirit beast egg has the same appearance, so you can only follow your feelings and choose the one you want the most. Once you choose, you will come out from there. Now follow me to choose the spirit beast eggs. Everyone in the classroom stood up and left. He Qiuji glared at Sima Yue when she walked past her. When she saw that Sima Yue turned around, He Qiuji quickly retracted her gaze and walked away as if nothing had happened. Feng Zhixing brought them to the back mountain of the academy. When they arrived, the people from the other classes were already waiting there and a few teachers were chatting together. Sima Yue noticed that when the teachers looked at Feng Zhixing, there was a hint of respect in their eyes. Is everyone here? Feng Zhixing walked over and asked. Yes, everyone else is here. Your class is the last to arrive. A teacher said. Then let's go in. Feng Zhixing ignored the sarcasm in the teacher's words and said. This time there were not many spirit masters in the academy. There were only about 1,000 people. Excluding the special classes, which were the alchemists and beast tamers, there were about 900 people like them in the normal classes. Because the cave was relatively small and could only accommodate 300 to 400 people, they divided the students into 3 groups to enter. When the students found out, they all expressed that it was unfair. If the people who entered first chose the high-level spirit beast, then the people who entered later would not be able to get it. Everyone, please calm down. A teacher waved his hand to signal for everyone to be quiet and said, the spirit beast eggs inside are all random, so the probability of entering first is the same. You don't have to feel that it is unfair. Alright, the first batch. According to the order of arrival, they had already divided the students into 3 groups. Feng Zhixing's group was the last to enter, so they were the last to enter. When Sima Yue came to the back of the mountain, she had a feeling that something was calling out to her, knocking into her heart one by one. That voice seemed to be saying, come here, come here. She looked around and did not find anything strange. When she listened carefully, the voice disappeared. Chapter 30. Sima Yue had seen her family's library before, so she was not surprised. However, it was the first time for the people around her to see such a scene, so they were all shocked. She looked around the entire cave, but she did not see any so-called door. She only saw 3 white halos on the ground that were emitting a faint white light. Alright, everyone be quiet. The teacher said loudly. The echo of his voice reverberated in the cave, and everyone quietened down. Teacher, we don't see any door. A student said. The 3 teleportation portals in front of you are the doors. After you enter, they will bring you to the house where the eggs are kept. Remember, once you choose one of the eggs, you will be ejected. There is no second chance, so you must grasp the opportunity well. Don't act recklessly, you must choose the one that you are most sensitive to. Another teacher said. Yes, you can only go to the 3 portals in front of you. You cannot go to the 4th one. If you go to the 4th portal and something happens, you will have to bear the consequences. The first teacher said. Teacher, are all portals the same? They are all the same. This is a random portal, so the probability of being teleported to that place is the same. Alright, go ahead. Don't push. Once the teacher said that, everyone rushed towards the portal. Although the teacher said that the probability was the same, they still felt that the probability of being the first to enter was different. Some of the students disappeared after entering the portal. When the others saw this, they rushed over even more crazily. Sima Yue was forced to move forward in the crowd, and was pushed to the innermost part. The innermost portal was the one that the teachers had emphasized not to go to. Everyone thought that there were no eggs inside, so they did not go there. That portal was not activated, but Sima Yue looked at it. In the chaos, she seemed to see 2 flashes of light from the portal. Come. Sima Yue heard the call again and was stunned for a moment. At this moment, someone pushed her from behind and she stood on the 4th teleportation array. At this moment, the portal emitted a dazzling red light. She turned around in shock, and saw He Qiuji's eyes and face filled with hatred. You. Before she could say another word, she disappeared into the teleportation array. The teachers who were watching the students fight at the entrance panicked when they saw the red light. They shouted, who went to the 4th teleportation array just now? Only half of the students were left in the cave. They looked at each other, wondering what had happened to the teachers. Teacher, I think it's Class A's Sima Yue. Someone said. Sima Yue? I got it. Please continue. That teacher said. Since it was that trash, there was nothing to worry about. In order to prevent such a thing from happening again, the students immediately quieted down. They entered the teleportation circle in an orderly manner and disappeared from the cave. Feng Zhixing had been outside the cave the whole time. When he saw the red light flashing inside, he knew that it was the light of the fourth transmission array. He suddenly had a bad feeling. He came to the entrance of the cave and asked, "Who just entered the fourth teleportation formation?" "It's your class's Sima Yue." A teacher said, "She must have been accidentally squeezed in when it was crowded." "What?" Feng Zhixing's heart skipped a beat. "Isn't that, Teacher Feng, once a student is teleported in, they won't come out until they find the beast egg. There's no use panicking now." "That's right. Although the school has never opened the fourth teleportation formation, there shouldn't be any problems, right?" "No problems? How could that be?" Yesterday the old principal had told him that the students who went in before were all delirious. Their meridians were severely damaged, and their cultivation was destroyed. This was called no problems? Actually, what the old principal did not say was that those students did not come out after going in, and stayed in there forever. "Teacher Feng, you're a new teacher, so you don't know much about this. We've been here for so many years, so we're very clear about this situation. There shouldn't be any problems." A teacher said, "Those were just rumors. That student won't have any problems. I want to go in too." Feng Zhixing did not listen to the other teacher's comforting words at all. He went straight to the fourth teleportation formation, but no matter how much spirit chi he injected, the teleportation formation did not move at all. It did not have any intention of activating. At this time, most of the students had already gone in. When the teachers saw Feng Zhixing go into the teleportation formation, they were all shocked. But when they saw that the teleportation formation did not react, they relaxed. "Teacher Feng, this teleportation formation is very strange. Not everyone can use it. You should just wait here." Feng Zhixing came out and looked at the teleportation formation for a while. He turned and left the cave, heading straight to the old principal's office. Although this teleportation formation looked similar to the other three, there were still some differences. Perhaps the old principal knew how to go in. But the old principal's answer dashed his hopes. "That teleportation formation has been there since the school was founded. At first it was the school's forbidden area. Later on we opened the other three teleportation formations there and saw the beast egg room. That teleportation formation can only be used by people it recognizes." "It? What's that?" "I don't know either. The instructions that were passed down from the past did not explain clearly. It is said that there are other things inside other than the dead eggs. That is why the students who go in have those kinds of situations." The old principal said. "Then is there no other way to go in?" Feng Zhixing asked anxiously as he placed his hands on the table. The old principal shook his head helplessly. Feng Zhixing fell back onto the chair. The old principal looked at Feng Zhixing suspiciously. Since when did this guy have such an anxious look? In his impression, this guy was a cold-blooded and heartless person. "I'll go over there and wait." Feng Zhixing calmed himself down and stood up to leave. When he arrived at the back of the mountain, there were already students coming out. They were holding large and small beast eggs in their hands. He looked at the fourth teleportation formation worriedly. "Yue, you have to come out safely." After Sima Yue disappeared from the teleportation formation, she felt dizzy. Before she could think, she fell onto the soft ground. Damn you." She got up from the ground. Luckily there were thick leaves on the ground. Otherwise she would have fallen like a dog. "Damn, you dare to trick me. Don't let me out. Otherwise I will play you to death." You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.